Actually, a lot of grants. Yeah, I just never really thought about exploring it because, man, there's no way. So, yeah, I think that would be, it wouldn't be well received. Well, if we did it, then there would be no. Right. The dogs themselves are tens of thousands of dollars sort of training, maintenance, and vet bills, and yeah, that's crazy. Right. Because they're involved in training, yeah. Huh? Well, Texas, I can see. Yeah. I just got back from the conference. There's elastic safety stuff. It's not like pretty required. Texas football program. Huh? Oh. Like a D2 school.
We're ready? Okay. All right. Good evening, everybody. Thank you for joining us for this board meeting on Tuesday, February 27th, 2024. And it is 5:30. So I would like to establish roll call.
Ms. Ekstrom?
Here.
Mr. Romero?
Here.
Dr. Ravi?
Here.
Ms. Shaw?
Here.
Ms. Lunaros?
Here. Okay, all of us are here this evening. Great. Okay, so now we will be doing the land acknowledgement statement, and I do believe we have our Assistant Superintendent, Region 4 Arcadia, Ms. Shauna Rodriguez. Ms. Rodriguez has proudly served in TUSD for 23 years as a teacher, assistant principal, and is now the Region 4 Assistant Superintendent of Arcadia. She is equally as prideful of being a product of TUSD and a native Tucsonan. Ms. Rodriguez.
Thank you, President Luna. Rose, on behalf of the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District, I, Shauna Rodriguez, acknowledge that the schools, buildings, and facilities of the Tucson Unified School District reside on the ancestral homeland of the To'ono O'odham Nation and the federally recognized tribal land of the Pascua Yaqui tribe. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Rodriguez. Okay, now we are going to do the Pledge of Allegiance, and tonight we have Ricardo R.E. Cabrera, 8th grader from Dodge Magnet Middle School. From his principal, Brenda McGee, R.E. is an outstanding example of a Dodge Bulldog. He is an honor roll student with a perfect attendance and is expecting to start his freshman year with 5 credits already completed taking classes such as geometry and Spanish. You go, R.E. He is a talented musician playing in the advanced orchestra, as well as an athlete competing in soccer, track, and cross country. R.E. is also a member of the National Junior Honor Society, participating in his community. We are exceptionally proud of him. So, if you want to come up. Oh, you're the spelling bee champion as well? Ah, well, it wasn't on my bio, so my apologies. But yes, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And congratulations on the spelling bee. Go ahead. So the word was macchiato. Is that your winning word? That's awesome. So, well, congratulations again, and thank you for joining us this evening. Okay, Dr. Trujillo, agenda adjustments.
President Luna Rose, members of the governing board, 2 agenda adjustments this evening. I'd like to move item 8.1 to directly follow the call to the audience. I'd also like to pull item 6.2 from consent, and we'll bring that forward at a subsequent meeting.
Okay. Board members, any objections? No? Okay. Moving on, awards and recognitions. Dr. Trujillo.
President Luna Rose, no worries. We are here in awards and recognitions to recognize the champ who is with us this evening, the spelling bee champ. We'll get to that momentarily, but we have a treat for all of you in the viewing community, those that are viewing us here live and those who are online, because tonight we have the great pleasure of welcoming Cavit's finest, their 4th grade taiko ensemble. I had the pleasure of visiting Cavit in October and saw the taiko drum class in action. I've actually seen them in previous years, and they're more outstanding every time I visit. This group has been studying taiko drums since the 3rd grade, effectively blending math, music, discipline, and Japanese culture. This art form requires movement, musicality, and team cooperation, helping students to discipline their minds, their bodies, and their creativity. The Cavit Taiko Ensemble was recently featured on K-Gun 9's Hiring Heidi segment. Today, they will be performing Buchiavase, a traditional Japanese festival rhythm about the ocean waves. The piece, it is arranged by one of our most outstanding OMA arts educators, teaching artist Nicole Stansberry. Hello, Nicole. Welcome. Where is she? She's outside. There she is. Always a pleasure. And Principal Carol Leeson, the proud principal of Cavit Elementary, who is a wonderful advocate for OMA and the arts for the Cavit community. We're gratefully appreciative of your support, Ms. Leeson. And without any further ado, let's turn the stage over to our OMA 4th grade performance artists, the Taiko Ensemble, representing Cavit Elementary. All right. Thanks again to the wonderful, wonderful OMA performance artists, fourth grade Cavett Elementary School students, the Taiko Ensemble. One more round of applause for them. They're absolutely amazing. And continuing on with our awards and recognitions, just a special word of appreciation to the Robinson, Mission View, and Carrillo elementary communities for hosting me for Love of Reading. Had an absolutely wonderful time celebrating the love of literacy this month, and just so proud of our students who are so dedicated to growing their literacy skills and sharing with me their favorite books. I had great opportunities at each school to hear from students about their favorite books and what they like most about reading, and how many times students would tell me, Dr. Trujillo, you're never too old to read. So me taking the subtle hint that I was the old guy in all of those settings where I was reading to kids. But still some time to celebrate Love of Reading until the end of the month. I know that our board members, thank you all for getting out there as well and reading to our students. I want to congratulate an outstanding junior at Rincon High School, Jaden Moore. He was recently named the Boys and Girls Club 2024 Mark Irvin City of Tucson Youth of the Year. As the recipient of this prestigious award, Jaden has been awarded the $5,000 William J. Dawson Memorial Scholarship, generously funded by Jim and Judy Knapp and Carol Lynn Dawson. He will also have the honor of representing Tucson at the upcoming state competition on April 6th. At 17 years old, Jaden has been a dedicated member of the Jim and Vicky Click Clubhouse over the last 8 years. His ambitious goals of pursuing a degree in athletic training, sports medicine, motivate him. He wants to go to USC or UCLA or the University of Arizona as potential universities of interest. All of those institutions would be lucky to have a young man of this outstanding caliber in character. Let's give him a round of applause. Absolutely. And let's celebrate our outstanding young scholar who got us started this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance. Ricardo Cabrera from Dodge Middle School. He outlasted 30 other spellers from around schools and districts all over Pima County to win the 2024 Pima County Spelling Bee with the winning word that I'm not even sure I would be able to spell off the top of my head, macchiato. Ricardo will advance to the Arizona Education Foundation State Spelling Bee on March 16th in Phoenix to decide who is going to represent the state of Arizona at the Scripps National Spelling Bee in May. Congratulations, Ricardo. We are rooting for you. We are so proud of you. You represent the district with a wonderful attitude, great leadership, and we are so inspired by your victory, and we're here to cheer you on. So congratulations and good luck to you representing us in Phoenix. And stick around. I'm sure our board members and I would love a picture when we're finished with our awards and recognitions. And we have a very, very special recognition this evening. It has been a long road for Utterback Middle School. Over the last 5 or 6 years, we have seen Utterback transform literally before our very eyes into one of the premier middle school options in the entire district and in all of Pima County. And that transition was rewarded by AVID, as AVID, which is one of the premier college and career readiness frameworks in the nation, recognized Utterback Middle School as the first TUSD AVID demonstration school. And for those of us following outside of educational circles, AVID is very much the gold standard for college and career readiness programming for schools across the country. It stands for Achievement via Individual Determination. Teachers in AVID schools undergo a tremendous amount of professional development, hours and hours and hours of training to be able to implement the framework. The AVID framework also welcomes in tutors from local universities and community colleges to work directly with our students to model college-going behaviors and to mentor our students on how to access resources once you do get to college. So it is an entire mindset shift for Avid schools about college and career readiness. And the good news about Utterback is they have achieved the very, very highest rating possible within the Avid rating system. This achievement, of course, is a testament to the dedication to academic excellence by the entire Utterback Middle School unicorn community. It's also important to note that there are only 3 Avid demonstration schools in the entire state of Arizona, and Utterback is one of those 3. That is absolutely amazing. Now, what this designation means is that schools from across the country will be able to visit Utterback and learn about their amazing work. Of course, I would like to extend my heartfelt congratulations to the entire Utterback Middle School community for this outstanding achievement. And of course, first and foremost, Principal Taranika Sanders. I am just speechless in terms of what she's been able to accomplish in the last 5 years. I know that it hasn't always been an easy road, but she has been tremendously effective in changing the culture and climate of the Utterback Middle School community. And kudos to her and her staff for this wonderful designation. On frequent trips to Avid conferences, I know I've always spoken with Avid demonstration school administrations. Now it's really cool to actually have one in the district and to be able to receive visiting districts and schools with pride as they walk across the campus of Utterback as Avid's newest demonstration school. So let us give a round of applause to the Utterback community. And a couple of words about our recent rodeo break. Rodeo Festival, the Rodeo Parade, is a staple of the culture and climate and the tradition of the old Pueblo. And the 99th annual Tucson Parade and Rodeo took place last week. The parade featured over 120 entries, consisting of over 500 horses, approximately 2,300 people, 85 wagons and buggies, and 8 marching bands, with many students and staff representing Tucson Unified School District. One TUSD student, Bo Anaya from White Elementary, earned himself some new hardware after winning the Touch Calf event as part of the Junior Rodeo. There you see him. Congratulations, Bo, for his victory. And certainly want to see more TUSD representation out there at next year's parade and rodeo. We've got some staff appreciation days. Always a good time to recognize the excellence of our employees across the district. Let's start with February being National Magnet School Month. This is a time to celebrate the nationwide community of visionary schools committed to diversity, innovation, and academic excellence open to all students in communities across the nation. It's no secret that the Tucson Unified School District is home to one of the largest portfolios of magnet schools in the state of Arizona. We're also home to some of the most widely renowned and recognized magnet schools in the country. TUSD has 12 magnet schools total, serving over 7,000 students. 8 of our 12 magnet schools have a label of A or B as assigned by the Arizona Department of Education. In 23-24, our district received the most Magnet School of America awards in recent history, with 4 schools receiving the Top School of Excellence Award: Bonias, Borton, Carrillo, Holiday, and Mansfeld, and 2 schools receiving the School of Distinction Award: Drachman and Tucson High. TUSD leaders Cameron Taravati and Aaron Collins will be presenting at the annual Magnet Schools of America Conference this April. Their topic is Innovative Foundations, Empowering Magnet Schools Through Instructional Leadership Teams. So we want to wish our teams the best of luck as they represent our district at the Magnet Schools of America Conference coming up soon. March, which is right around the corner, is Music in Our Schools Month. It is a month-long celebration of music education. Marks the start of spring. It also is recognized as one of the best months of the year to celebrate music. This month-long observance was established by the National Association for Music Education to emphasize the significance of music education in educational institutions. Research has demonstrated the positive impact of learning and practicing music, such as enhanced academic achievement and increased creativity. Let us acknowledge the dedicated music teachers and students who contribute to creating a more cohesive school environment and who bring the music to school each and every day. Take a moment to enjoy your favorite music and join in celebrating this very important month with a positive mindset. And lastly, March 4th, coming up, is Maintenance Worker Appreciation Day. Our hardworking maintenance personnel in Tucson Unified are dedicated to providing essential tools and services that facilitate safe and clean learning environments for our students, as well as working environments for our employees, our teachers, and our school staff. Their responsibilities, such as installation of technology, delivery of supplies, upkeep of buildings and equipment and facilities, are vital to the successful operation of our school district. It is safe to say our district could not run without them. So in advance of March 4th, I want to say thank you to all of our hardworking maintenance personnel, whether you're grounds or whether you're custodians or whether you're working in our district warehouse and you're receiving merchandise and handling deliveries, or you're in our ITS department handling technology installations. We could not do this without you. We couldn't do school without you, and our students couldn't do what they do without you as well. President Luna Rose, members of the governing board, that concludes our awards and recognitions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Trujillo. And just wanted to make a quick comment. I was the first, when I went into third grade at Bonilla Elementary, that was the first year it became a magnet school. So, and I'm not going to tell everybody what year that was, but it was the 80s. So it was a while ago. Dr. Shaw. Okay. But before we move on to board member activity reports, we would love to take a picture with you, Ari. That's okay? Great, thank you. Okay, so now we are on to board member activity reports. So we do this once a month, and board members can let the community know and their fellow colleagues what they've been up to. So since I will defer to my colleagues and I will go last, who would like to go first? Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. So it's been a great month going to schools and visiting and supporting our district. I was able to make it to Kent Cooper's groundbreaking and got a little shovel and a hat. They have new facilities, not related to the bond, but related to other sources of funding that we approved many months ago. And so it'll be new bathrooms, new overnight facilities. So I'm really excited that hopefully they'll all be ready for my youngest kids to be able to enjoy some good overnight facilities there. And I think we shall be ready for a lot of groundbreakings in the years ahead for TUSD. So it was a great start to that. I was able to attend the African American Student Advisory Council induction event at Innovation Tech. I got to talk to a few of the students that were being inducted to the Student Advisory Council, a new initiative from the African American Student Services Department. So thank you for the invitation. I'm really glad I got to attend that ceremony. I was able to attend United Way of Tucson and Southern Arizona's breakfast, where Holidays and TUSD's very own Bonita Stembridge was honored as a literacy champion. So it was amazing seeing her up there and hearing her story. I was able to make it out to 2 schools for love of reading. I had a limited availability, so I always pick schools I haven't had a chance to visit before. So I was able to make it to Tully Elementary, and thank you, Principal Wilkin and the staff of Tully for the introduction to the amazing Tully community on the west side. I also made it out to Pueblo Gardens K-8, and thank you, Principal Conrad and the staff at Pueblo Gardens for a great tour and introduction to the Pueblo Gardens community on our near southwest side. So great introduction to those 2 schools. And then finally, I was able to make it out to the Ross Gruge Cougar Classics finals, where I got to see one of my fellow board members' daughter and line weaver win the girls' elementary school finals. So it was great to cheer on the Lions for that event, and I won't steal her thunder on that one. But it was great to be there, and basketball is one of my favorite sports to watch, so I was glad to be able to enjoy that.
Anybody else? Mr. Romero.
All right, I kind of focused it on reading. Maybe I needed to practice like Dr. Trujillo. So with Love of Reading Month, many classes at many schools. So I'm just going to kind of name them off. Hit up at Miles Elementary, Safford K-8, Grijalva, Lynn Urquidy, C.E. Rose, Van Buskirk, Pueblo Gardens, John B. Wright, Robeson, Carrillo, Ochoa, Trockman, Sewell, Soling Tom, Kelland, and Bonias.
Ms. Shaw.
That's all.
Did you have?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. I had the opportunity in the beginning of the month to visit Doolin Middle School and had a tour from their principal, Ms. Santine, which was very extensive, and I got to see all that's happening on that campus. We also got a chance to view the drama class student performances done by Miss Coulter's class, which was fabulous. They really put me to shame for the drama that I took in college. They were incredible. And so bravo to her and her students. I also attended with Dr. Shaw, the African American Student Services Department's first annual induction for their Student Advisory Committee that took place at JTED. We also got a tour of the new facility being built out there, and so keep an eye out for some new classes that will be offered at JTED, I think in the summer. Or after the summer. Later on, I attended the event at Palo Verde High School where Carlotta Walls Lanier spoke about her experience. She was one of the Little Rock 8. And that was fabulous. And for anyone who doesn't know about her, please check it out. She has a book that's just came out. Let's see. I also got to read to a first grade class at Pueblo Gardens. And a little girl in that class showed us how to lasso like an object, which is a skill that she was taught by her father. So that was a great start to like the rodeo festivities. Later on, I read to a fourth grade class at Lineweaver who had so many questions both during my reading and after. So that was nice. I love to answer questions by kids. Later on, I read to a class at Tully. And yeah, Dr. Shaw happened to be there that same day. It was fancy dress up day, which is a really interesting, spirit type of day there. So the teacher, Mr. Taylor, was dressed up in a tuxedo. So that was fabulous. I read the first book of the Chronicles of Narnia, which is my favorite, but definitely not my daughter's favorite. She did not want me to read that to her, but I did. Let's see. Later on, actually, most recently, I went to Wheeler, where Dr. Rodriguez gave me an extensive tour. I read to the entire first grade class and also learned about all the data-driven initiatives that her and her team have implemented during her tenure. Let's see, Val Romero and I attended the Superintendent's Collaborative, I think last week. And that's like where board members across Pima County get together, have dinner, and then learn about like the happenings of ASBA and other like current events. Let's see. And then last but not least, I read to 2 classes at Grijalva. They were kindergarten classes. And, you know, when we go to classes and read, to, especially the little ones, we have to be on our toes for interesting questions. The book I read to everybody was Amazing Grace. And, like, the moral of that story is that, like, you could be or do anything you want if you put your mind to it. And then a little kid asked, "Can I jump off a bridge?" And of course I said, yes, you can, with a trained professional. So, you know, it's always nice to hear those interesting questions that kids have. So that's it for me. Thank you.
Ms. Ekstrom.
Thank you. Let me start off with my love of reading schools. I attended love of reading at Monzo, Grijalva, Johnson Primary, Davidson, C.E. Rose, Robinson, Pueblo Gardens, Maldonado, Ochoa, White, Linarchides, Borton, and Collier. So thank you to those schools for having me. It was such a wonderful time reading and answering all of the kids' questions. And they definitely keep you on your toes. And it's such a great time. And it just really brightens your day to be at Love of Reading. I also did a couple of school tours. First was Davidson Elementary. Thank you to Principal and Andrico Polos. We visited OMA class, the preschool where I read to them. We visited RTI teachers, and they were doing their interventions, and that was great to see. I also visited the counselor and the library, and I also read to a 3rd grade class. Next was Mansfield Magnet Middle School. Thank you, Principal Von Shee. I visited 7th grade engineering. I also got to see a raw mummified whole chicken, which is quite the sight to see. So that was really great. I also got to see choir and band and math and science class. It's a great campus. Next was Collier. Thank you to Principal Langford. I got to visit and read to an amazing 3rd grade class who had a ton of questions, and it's just great to have that back and forth. We took a tour, and I was able to visit many of the classrooms, also the preschool there. And lastly, I would like to congratulate the Lineweaver Lions, girls 5th grade and under. They won the regular season championship, and they also won the Ross Scrooge Cougar Classic. My daughter is on the team there, so it was great being a basketball mom. So thank you to Coach Cody and Coach Legan for being great role models to those girls, and it was just a wonderful time being a basketball mom and visiting the different high schools who hosted the Ross Scrooge Cougar Classic. So thank you to those high schools who allowed us to be in their spaces. And then last but not least, I would like to wish my daughter Zoe a happy birthday today.
Thank you, and happy birthday to Zoe. She's 9, right? Big 9 years old. Just wait till she turns 16. Okay, because that's coming up for me. Okay, so again, thank you everybody for coming this evening. Like all my colleagues, love a reading. This is, I think, probably the best part of being on the board is going to the classrooms and reading. And the kids do ask funny questions and like to tell you relevant but slightly irrelevant things about the book you're reading, but it's a lot of fun. And so thank you to Grijalva, Pueblo Gardens, C.E. Rose, Maldonado, Miller, Robeson, and a school close to my parent heart. I was there for 6 years as a parent at Sewell Elementary. Just so much fun, and really just brightens your day if you're having kind of a crappy day, or something really to look forward to. So, and the 2 books I read, I after doing this for a couple of years, I like to bring 2 books depending on grade level. First one is The Sour Grape, which is the series. If you're familiar with the Spark Cookie, The Bad Seed, this is another one in the series, and the sour grape learns how to become unsour again. And then for the older grades, that tends to be the Lorax. My own personal copy of that book's probably very old. And I read that today to some third graders at Robeson, and they had some wonderful questions. So if you're not familiar with the Lorax, I Speak for the Trees. It's one of Dr. Seuss's masterpieces. I did not mention this the last time, but back in late January, I attended an education roundtable with Congressman Raul Grijalva at Rossbridge Elementary, along with other administrators and teachers. And he gave an update to the district on what possible cuts could be coming in United States Congress. And even though, there's a lot of animosity going on concerning education, which would be very concerning to us. They're talking about really cutting Title I funding, which would be very hurtful to not just our districts, but districts across the country that are like ours. I highly implore you to reach out to your members of Congress and, of course, your state legislators about education funding, because it's much needed, as we all know. I also attended the Jewish Latino Teen Coalition. It's a group run out of the Jewish Community Center, and it's comprised of 12 students, 6 Jewish students, and 6 Latino students. And of the 12, 2 were TUSD students. One went to Tucson High, the other one goes to UHS. And they wanted me to come talk about what it was like to be a school board member. They have a focus where they pick a topic, and then they actually fly to DC to go and lobby their members of Congress, including Congressman Grijalva, Congressman Ciscomani, the senators' offices, Kelly and Sinema. It's a great program. It's been around for quite a while now, and their topic was food insecurity, and they gave the district kudos about our recent vote on making food free, breakfast and lunch at all our schools free across the district. They were very excited about that, and so we talked about that as well. So thank you to the JCC and the Jewish Latino Teen Coalition for inviting me. I also got to be a judge at the Mr. Pueblo Warrior contest at Pueblo High School. It could be you would think it'd be a little cringy, because it's 5 seniors, 5 young men who are competing to become Mr. Pueblo Warrior for the year. It is a fundraiser for the Pueblo Counseling Department, and whoever the proceeds go to funding a scholarship through the counseling department, which is wonderful. So I had a lot of fun. It was clean. There was, maybe one little gyrate, but that was about it. So, but it was a nice packed evening. Everybody had a lot of fun, and congratulations to Jorge Franco for his. I think what pushed him over with the judges is that he did the whole reenactment with one of his classmates of Dirty Dancing. They did the whole dance from their dancing on the stage, and then he jumps off the stage and runs down the aisle, and then the young lady jumped into his arms. It was exactly like the movie. And so when I asked him about it later, I said, this movie came out when I was in middle school, and he goes, I just found out about this movie 3 months ago. So, yeah. So, but now his favorite, and he was going to become a Patrick Swayze fan, so good for him. And then lastly, in other events that I attended, the Rincon University Rincon University High School Winter Color Guard competitions in Sahuarita. They won first place, the black team did, and then purple won 4th. They have competitions up through April. There's just a few schools in the district that are doing Winter Color Guard this year. I believe Tucson High and Sabino. So I did not see them in the time I was there. But congratulations to Rincon University. They practice a lot. And I say that as a color guard mom. So, and I've got purple in my hair to support them from their competition this past weekend. So, And I want to also make a mention, and there's too many to name, but we have a lot of our schools right now, a lot of our sports programs that have won championships or they're getting ready to play championships. I know Saguaro's got one coming up. Sabino just won. Obviously, the middle school, Mr. Dale Lopez, thank you for all his work on the middle school basketball. We've got a lot of great sports and programs. So if you have a chance to go out to them, even for an afternoon or an evening, something to do, bring your family. I think they'd really appreciate your support. Just 3 more things real quickly before I forget. I forgot it was Public Schools Week. It's so happy Public Schools Week. I'm showing appreciation for our amazing educators, teachers, and staff. So I'm public school proud. I went to Bonias Elementary, Aliceville Middle School, and I graduated of Rincon High School. So, and everybody here that went through the public school system should be very proud. So thank you to Public School, Save Our Schools for their continued advocacy. This is the last week, as we were talking about, of Love of Reading, and also Black History Month. For the last week of Black History Month, it started yesterday, the Black Parent Involvement Week, February 26th through March 1st. If you're interested in seeing what's going on there, please check out their Facebook page or go to the website. Dr. Strozier has been very busy this month and doing a great job. And at the end of that, on Thursday at Santa Rita, is Black History Month Brain Bowl from 9 to 2. So if you have a chance to go there and see the excellent things the African American Student Services Department is doing, I highly encourage. And lastly, because it's a leap year, February 29th is Dr. Trujillo's birthday. So wishing Dr. Trujillo a happy birthday. And how old are you exactly in leap years?
In leap year, wow, that is going to make me 12.
Dr. Trujillo is turning 12 on Thursday. So that is the end of, I believe, our board member activity reports.
Madam President,
Yes.
if I may, real quick, I gotta amend what I said about Miss Carlotta Wall's linear. It's the Little Rock 9. Excuse me so much. I just want to point out, this wasn't something that I was taught in school, and I'm sure many other students aren't taught. I'm not sure if it's a part of our curriculum in TUSD, Dr. Trujillo, but I wonder if we can add somehow Miss Carlotta Wall's new book, A Mighty Long Way, to our curriculum somehow. And I just want to point out how important this is because, you know, there's still people today who went through that. My father, if he was alive, would be 80 years old, and he surely had to go to segregated schools. And so, you know, I think it's an important point to teach folks about the progress and everything that happened in our long and sordid history of America. So just wanted to amend my statement. Thank you.
Thank you. And one more thing I did forget to mention. Saguaro National Park is inviting the community. They have Black Voices Outdoors this Friday night from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Saguaro National Park Tucson District Office, which is what most people call it the West, on the west side. So they're going to have 2 speakers and conversation about getting more of our minority communities out in nature. So highly recommend, and you can also check out their website. So thank you, Saguaro National Park. Before we go to call to the audience, if you need Spanish interpreting services, she's over there, very nice, thank you. And I do believe that is it, and I will turn it over. Before we move on, board members, do you think we could move item 7.1, administrative appointments, reassignments, and transfers, right before 8.1, if you're okay with that? Okay, thank you. So we'll move that. We'll go 7.1, Dr. Trujillo, and then 8.1 when we get to that. Okay. All right, thank you. All right, now I will turn it over to Clerk Ekstrom.
Thank you. Public participation at board meetings. Members of the public may speak during call to the audience. The governing board clerk shall be responsible for recognizing speakers and for maintaining order where it may be appropriate. Those who speak in person or want to have their comments read shall email or call the board office or complete a request to address the board form before the meeting. Speakers who have not completed a request form are not permitted to address the board. The speaker must state their full name and topic prior to addressing the board. Speakers are encouraged to be brief with a maximum time of 3 minutes. While more than one speaker may speak together in the time allowed, speakers are reminded that they are not allowed to speak more than once and they may not transfer or delegate their time to others. If there are documents for the board, please give them to the board office staff and they will ensure each board member receives a copy. Those attending the meeting and or speaking before the board shall observe good rules of conduct. Speakers shall also refrain from inappropriate or slanderous remarks. And because TUSD serves students from preschool through high school, speakers should be aware there may be children present and listening. At the end of call to the audience, the governing board president will ask if any board member wishes to respond to a criticism, wish to ask staff to review a matter, or wish to ask that a matter be placed on a future agenda. No more than 2 members may address each topic. Contents of this card are public information. Our first speaker is Annette Swift.
Respected board members, my name is Annette Swift and I have been an elementary school counselor for the past 7 years in TUSD. I am here to advocate on behalf of school counselors who are currently funded through ESSER monies and whose full-time positions are now in jeopardy. I have been funded through ESSER for the past 3 years, and for the 4 years before that, I was required to split my time between 2 separate schools. Once again, I am in jeopardy of this happening again. So this means that I will have twice the amount of students, twice the amount of weekly counseling lessons, twice the amount of weekly counseling groups, maybe even twice the amount of professional duties, and that would also include 504s, any kinds of behavioral, social, or emotional needs that might come up. According to the CDC, an estimated 1 in 5 US children experience mental, emotional, or behavioral disorders. These include anxiety, depression, ADHD, and behavioral disorders as well. Sadly, only 20% of these children receive the proper professional psychological treatment that they require. Instead, they arrive on our campuses with inabilities to focus, difficulties concentrating, disengagement, aggression, low self-esteem, and sadly, sometimes even suicidal ideations. All of which have been proven time and time again to increase negative outcomes in their personal and academic lives. These are our students, and I'm here to be a voice for them. All students deserve the right to a quality education in all areas that lead to academic success, and this includes social emotional education. Your school counselors have received extensive and ongoing education to help our students deal with their academic, social, emotional, and mental health concerns. Your school counselors will always be there for our students to advocate for them, and that's why I'm here. I worry immensely about what might happen to my students at Ford Elementary if I'm not there for them each school day. I worry, and this will not go away anytime soon, even after my ESSER funding expires, even if I'm forced to work at 2 different schools. I am suggesting that not only school counselors are funded 100% FTE for the upcoming school year, but 100% at one single location. Because even when the counselor is away 50% of the time, our students will continue to struggle. I would like to end my plea by reading a passage from the National School Counseling Week proclamation signed by you very board members. Comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enable all students to achieve success in school. So please allow me and my fellow ESSER-funded school counselors to be that integral part and to enable our students to achieve academic, social, and emotional success.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next is Chelsea Ortiz.
esteemed board members. My name is Chelsea Ortiz. I am an elementary school counselor here in TUSD. I've been a school counselor for about 2 years now. And I just wanted to say that I think that any school counseling time, could ever be considered for the chopping block is confusing and disappointing at best, because supporting the mental health of our youth requires whole society effort. Besides the pandemic's impact, students also now have unprecedented access to the horrors of war and to adult content. With new stressors and challenges at our door, we cannot afford to turn away those who have decided to heed the call to be healers in their communities. In the 2 years that I've been at Cragen Elementary School, I've had multiple opportunities to protect children as a mandatory reporter. I've had the great honor of holding space for the pain that makes school harder for these kids and their families. I've spotted bullying and intervened. I've engaged in problem-solving conversations with families to address low attendance. I've written letters of recommendation, and I've had the tremendous pleasure of witnessing students adopt the mindsets that will guide them and fuel their success in and out of their classrooms. In supporting school counselors, you support the development of the social and emotional skills that underlie academic success for our students, our future leaders. Thank you.
Thank you. Our last speaker is one to be read from Yolanda Sotelo. My name is Yolanda Sotelo, and I want to address words spoken by Natalie Luna Rose at the board meeting on February 13th. TUSD Board President Natalie Luna Rose started the meeting acknowledging the celebrations of Fat Tuesday, and then went on to say tomorrow is the beginning of a very important Christian holiday, Lent. Happy Lent to those who celebrate. I could not believe what I heard. Fat Tuesday is a celebration. People participate in lots of partying. It is the last opportunity to partake in the eating of rich foods rich in butter, egg, and fat. It is a joyful celebratory time before solemn observance of Lent. Lent is not a holiday. It's not a celebration. No one wishes anyone a happy Lent. Lent is 40 days of praying, fasting, and almsgiving. Lent is a Christian season of spiritual preparation before Easter. Lent is not only observed by Roman Catholics, but also by Lutheran, Methodist, Presbyterian, and Anglican denominations. At every board meeting, a land acknowledgement statement is read. It acknowledges that TUSD resides on the ancestral home of the Tohono O'odham and federally recognized tribal land of Pasquayaqui tribe. Those native tribes you acknowledge also observe Lent with their solemn and sacred Lenten ceremonies. I am a practicing Catholic, and I grew up observing the solemn 40 days before Easter. I continue to observe Lent. I cannot speak for others, but I was personally offended by your words. I hope that at future board meetings you will be more aware of the students, parents, staff, and the entire TUSD community you serve. Please be mindful of inaccurate words that can be insulting to some. And that concludes our call to the audience.
All right, thank you, Clerk Ekstrom. Board members, any response? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. And thank you to everyone who spoke today. First, I want to thank Ms. Ortiz and Ms. Swift for your advocacy, your service to our district, and your voice for counselors here and everywhere. I certainly am going to vote to keep all the ESSER-funded counselors, and I agree with your statement that, you know, we need to have at least one counselor for one school, absolutely. And I'm so sorry that we've been in the position where we have split up your time because the workload is, it's too much, and you know, you're needed at one campus so you can develop those relationships and do what you're there to do. So thank you. And that's it for me. Thanks.
Okay. Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President. Thank you, President Luna Rose. I want to thank our counselors for being here. The first time I ever came to a governing board meeting to talk to call to the audience, 5 or 6 years ago was to advocate for more school counselors. As a physician who works with a lot of kids who have a lot of the mental illness and suffering a lot of the physical harms because of that, I thought it was important to do so. And so I thank you for being here, advocating for counselors. And I'm glad we were able to work a lot of different ways on the budget to find ways to support a lot of the positions that are through ESSER. So looking forward to that discussion in a few minutes.
Okay. Thank you. Any other comment? I would like to make an apology to Ms. Sotelo. There was no personal offense. I am Catholic as well. And Catholics do observe Lent. And I perhaps should have used the word observe, but I will take that into consideration next time, so thank you. Okay, Dr. Trujillo, I do believe we're going to 7.1, administrative appointments, reassignments, and transfers, principal, Banks Elementary School.
Yes, members of the governing board, members of the public here in attendance. Tonight, I'm very proud to be making this recommendation for the position of principal at Banks Elementary. Tonight's recommended candidate has a wonderful history of service here in the Tucson Unified School District, most recently at Gridley Middle School, where he served as the assistant principal to one of our largest comprehensive middle schools in the district. Prior to that, he served in the Tohono community out in Sells, working with Native American youth as a middle school educator. And most recently, he's been serving as the interim principal over at Banks Elementary. And tonight's candidate is special because not only is he an instructional leader, but he has a gift that we don't see a lot. With school administrators, and certainly there are some excellent ones out there, but he's really good with his people. He connects wonderfully with community, with kids, with his staff. He's an advocate for those who struggle to advocate for themselves, and he's done that throughout his career, whether in Sells, whether over at Gridley, and now, of course, over at Banks Elementary. So it's with great pride that I like to recommend Mr. William Rosenberg to serve as the principal in the permanent posting there at Banks Elementary.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes.
I would a motion to approve Mr. William Rosenberg to serve as principal of Banks Elementary School.
Second.
All right. So moved by Ms. Ekstrom, seconded by Dr. Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
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 Seconded by Mr. Romero.
Oh, I'm sorry. Seconded by Mr. Romero.
I threw my voice.
Yeah. Okay. Any opposed? Okay. The ayes have it. Mr. Rosenberg, why don't you come up? And
Mr. Rosenberg, come on up. Congratulations.
Honorable board members, Dr. Trujillo, I'm honored and I'm blessed. I feel very blessed to be at Banks. I really like it there. It's a good fit. It's a beautiful little school. It's probably one of the safest schools in the district. It abuts Saguaro National Park, so there's beautiful mountains in the background to see. So thank you for the appointment. I really appreciate it. Just wanted to share a little story about the love of reading. So I was the Head Start director at Iliusi Matawapo at Pascuayaki. And I had received a message from the spouse of a teacher, and it was important. It wasn't like an emergency or anything like that. But I went into the classroom, and I sat by the teacher because she was reading a story. And so I didn't want to interrupt, so I just sat by her. You know, we did the crisscross applesauce. And so I'm sitting there, and one of the little girls, I think her name was Maria, and she said, "Mr. Rosenberg, can I sit on your lap?" And I said, "Yeah, mija, right here." So I had her, you know, on the edge of my knee. And, you know, these were 3-year-olds, you know, so they were really tiny. And I always thought that, you know, because I came from a secondary background where I was a teacher and everything, and, you know, older kids could really embarrass you. I had no clue little kids could. So she's sitting there, and she keeps looking up at me like that. And I didn't know why she was looking at me. And then, so the teacher finished the story, and then in front of everybody, she says, "Mr. Rosenberg, you have a booger right there." And I got embarrassed, and so I did this. And then I kind of leaned in with the kids. Is it gone? And then they looked at me, and then all of a sudden, no, it's still there. And then one of the kids said, and it's a big one. And so I realized, okay, I'm the adult in the room. I said, don't worry, kids. On my way out, I'll get a Kleenex. So, if you go out and you do love of reading, make sure, that there's nothing on your face or there's anything that, they'll notice, because they notice everything. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the appointment.
Thank you. And thanks for the story. And I do believe, Mr. Rosenberg, congratulations, you started the line over there with Mr. Sanchez and go all the way around. Oh, and then photos right afterwards. All right. All right. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are now going to item 8.1. It's a study action item. School year 24-25 funding recommendations for ESSER learning recovery positions. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Luna Rose, members of the governing board. I think before we start tonight's presentation, I think it's important just to have a quick word about where we've been and just how difficult the pandemic was, not only for the county, the city, but particularly in the Tucson Unified School District. And I know we talk a lot about the challenges that the pandemic presented in the early stages and certainly throughout it, and how much we relied on those frontline healthcare workers that serve so bravely in community health clinics and hospitals and doctors' offices and first responders. And we relied so much on the childcare community that provided a lot of the childcare for those first responders to be able to do their work. We equally relied on a special group of individuals coming out of the pandemic, our teachers, because what we know is the learning recovery coming off of 2 years of pandemic-related outside of school/online instruction was traumatic for our students, was difficult for our students, and presented significant challenges for them socially and academically. And as heroically as our frontline healthcare workers and our first responders served the community and served our neighborhood and served our city and our county during the pandemic, so did a special group of people coming out of the pandemic. And it's these people that we're here tonight to talk about. And if you want to see the difference that they made in the lives of kids and for the district and for our schools, you just have to take a look at the screen. When we take a look at what the district has done with letter grades pre-pandemic versus post-pandemic coming out of it, all we need to know is up there on the screen in terms of the increase in the amount of A schools and B schools, the overall increase of A through C rated schools, and most importantly, the elimination of F schools throughout the district, the dramatic decrease of D schools throughout the district in just 2 years' time. When you travel back to 2017, it was about 28% of all district schools carried the grade of a D or an F. This is a remarkable academic trajectory for this district. And I zero in on these 2 years because of the monumental challenges and obstacles and hurdles, operational, practical, and of course political, that the district faced, that our teachers faced. And to be able to facilitate this kind of improvement is a testament to the will, the passion, the presence of so many of these wonderful educators that we were able to fund through ESSER. And when we originally received ESSER grant funds, a requirement of the federal government was that you had to set aside a certain amount of these dollars for learning loss. So we knew immediately when we were going to set aside these dollars for learning loss, we were going to go straight into the research and isolate what are the best practices for literacy and numeracy for students who are struggling and working off of grade level through either gaps in schooling or learning disabilities or other outside factors that have limited student access. Small group instruction during the school day without sacrificing a lack of exposure to current year concepts and skills, while being able to receive instruction in a small group and sometimes individual format on those skills and concepts that have been a struggle for students or that were lacking during the COVID-19 pandemic. And so we put our eggs in the intervention basket, the reading and the math interventionists and the response to intervention teachers that we'll be talking about this evening. Now, helping them do their work in what I call the ecosystem of learning and helping them be successful in this ecosystem of learning was an equally heroic role fulfilled by our ESSER-funded counselors and MTSS coordinators that we'll also be talking about tonight. Because as we heard from the speakers that called to the audience, and as you'll hear from me right now, our students came back to us traumatized, scared, worried, anxious for the future. They saw loved ones sick. They saw loved ones unfortunately pass away. They saw a future that was no longer anything like they imagined it prior to 2020. And that sort of trauma and fear and anxiety required the light touch and the passion and the commitment of our school counselors that we were able to fund through ESSER. We'll be talking about them this evening. We'll talk about our MTSS facilitators. It's no secret the importance of the role that the MTSS facilitator plays in our schools. They are literally the stopgap that prevents some of our most vulnerable students, the most vulnerable students, from falling through the cracks in the system that is designed to advocate for them and empower them. They're there convening teams, calling parents, putting plans together, coordinating resources to make sure that our students not just survive academically and socially, but thrive and really make school come alive for them. So this evening, we're going to be talking about these positions, which I call our learning recovery focused positions. And I've stopped using the word learning loss because what I know as an educator and as a parent is once our young people and our kids learn something, it never really goes away. They never really forget it. You just have to reawaken it. And what happened during the pandemic is that conveyor belt of knowledge and learning, it just stopped momentarily. So everything our students and our kids learned up to that point is still there. We just had to reawaken it. And that's the key role that these learning recovery educators played for us during the pandemic. So tonight, we'll be talking about them and our vision and our proposal for making sure that they continue to serve our children and young people in classrooms and campuses around this district. We'll be talking about 3 distinct funding strategies to make that happen. But though they're 3 distinct funding strategies, they're unified in the purpose of making sure that these wonderful educators remain part of the TUSD community for years to come. So let's go ahead and get started. Funding strategy number 1 is no stranger to the community or to the board. And unlike the next 2 funding strategies that I'll talk about, funding strategy number 1 has to do with the usage of desegregation funds. And because it has to do with the usage of desegregation funds, the board will not be asked to approve this reallocation package tonight. It will be asked to authorize the administration to initiate the performance impact analysis process necessary for the board to come back at a later date to consider the reallocation package. A quick word on the performance impact analysis process for those that aren't necessarily plugged into the requirements of the post-unitary status accountability and reporting plan. Any time that the administration seeks to make a change in desegregation programming, either structurally or funding-wise, in this case funding-wise, we are required to facilitate a public process called a performance impact analysis. And what that requires the administration to do, it requires us to take the change that we are seeking to propose to the governing board and to go provision by provision of the old unitary status plan and describe in detail any potential consequences or ramifications to integration or academic achievement that could occur because of that change. And we literally have to go through transportation, student discipline, quality of education, technology. Those are just some of the larger provisions of the unitary status plan that we have to describe in terms of what we're trying to do and what impact there would be on integration, program vitality, or academic achievement with that change on those provisions. Then we have to post it publicly. It has that entire report, that performance impact analysis has to be posted publicly for our community. We've heard from our community that that's not the best way to communicate that a PIA is available. We know that now, okay? That simply just posting it and assuming that our community is going to read it is not going to be where we stop. We will be announcing a community question and answer forum once it is posted prior to that performance impact analysis coming back to the board. So that is our commitment, and that applies to this funding strategy number 1, which is a reallocation, a proposed reallocation of desegregation funds. We have a proposal in front of the governing board that honors community feedback around making no budgetary changes, no programmatic eliminations in any of our student services departments or our EDI department. We put together a funding proposal that will not impact anybody's job. It will not displace any employees. It will only apply to vacant positions. And in a couple of the larger areas, such as human resources, where $460,000 proposal, which largely is allocated to stipends, we have made sure that that $462,000 does not apply, is non-inclusive to our teachers that have been receiving magnet stipends and USP required stipends for several years now. We don't want anybody to go backwards on compensation. So the $462,000 is yet to spend money that is available for future hires. So we want to be very, very clear with the community is that's what that dollar amount entails. Same with advanced learning experience. We have a $100,000 budget reduction proposed. Part of the $100,000 there would be a reduction in AP exam fees for free and reduced lunch eligible students. I want to assure this board that Mr. Hernandez and I have confirmed we have enough dollars in other district budgets to cover those exam fees so that they do not have to come out of desegregation. We don't want a single student not being able to pay an AP exam fee. I think they run about $60 or $70. We want to be able to cover that. We can cover that out of some of our other funding sources so that our students don't see any ramifications. Those are some of the bigger areas. Of course, the purpose of the PIA is to get more detailed into each category of proposed expenditure reduction so that we can answer questions as they come from the community and the board. So this is funding strategy number 1. And if executed, this reallocation package would generate $3.5 million, and it would essentially fund on a permanent basis the 62.5 teachers that we have serving as reading interventionists, math interventionists, and response to intervention teachers throughout the district. Funding strategy number 2 is going to propose a permanent funding solution for MTSS coordinators around the district. Currently, we have 37, just over 37 MTSS facilitators serving at schools around the district, total cost of $2.7 million, and currently serving at 38 different schools. So almost half the district is relying on these ESSER-funded positions. to make the MTSS system work for students on their campuses. So our strategy here is we've identified a funding source known as Medicaid, and this funding source, it is born of the revenue that's generated by 3 positions that we have in the district. They're positions that generate Medicaid reimbursements from the federal government for clinical and medical services provided to students during the school day and during the school year. Those 3 positions are school nurses, licensed clinical social workers, and of course our psychologists. And those 3 positions generate just over $4 million in recurring reimbursements every single year. So our proposal is to take a look at our school nurse salaries, all of which right now reside in your regular district M&O budget at a cost of about $6 million. We would like to take $2.5 million of that total cost, and we would like to move it into Medicaid. We think it's an appropriate adjustment because the school nurses, they do generate the Medicaid revenue, so it's only appropriate that we at least be able to house a portion of their salary, the overall cost of their salaries, in Medicaid. This would open up the door for approximately $2.5 million of availability in M&O that you would essentially be able to fund your MTSS positions. So this is funding strategy number 2. And funding strategy number 3, the tough one for us, but for a worthy cause. We feel that any time that we are looking at other departments to make cuts, that we need to lead as a central office, that the district administration needs to look at itself. So I will be proposing that the district administration itself execute on a department by department level a 5% M&O budget reduction in our own budgets across the district administration so that we can generate the $1.15 million needed to fund on a permanent basis all of our ESSER-funded counselors and our ESSER-funded social workers. And that's a total, when you add the counselors and the social workers together, just shy of 22 positions across the district with just over $1.15 million. Now, for reasons of urgency and for reasons of obviously areas of the district that we identify as critical need, we will not be executing any budget reductions in exceptional education, in transportation, school safety, the arts, and interscholastics, because we are all passionate enthusiasts of never going backwards with access to the arts and interscholastics. We're finding our way around that. And we certainly, because of the urgency in terms of being able to be a better, stronger, more secure district, we do not want to recommend any kind of budget reductions in school safety. This board, this community, we're all well-traveled on our recent challenges in transportation, bus driver shortages. We've just come through that. We don't want to go backwards there either. And with exceptional education, though we do receive a sizable grant through IDEA, which is the Individuals with Educational Disabilities Act monies that we receive, we are responsible for a maintenance of effort financially. So the base level of funding that we fund teacher salaries with through our M&O budget, we can never go below that. So it's not like we can ever move 100% of all of our ex-ed teacher and parapro salaries over into IDEA. That would be great if we could, but unfortunately it's supplanting. We're not able to do that. But we are able to move as much as we can to soften the blow a little bit over into the IDEA budget to clear the way for at least some additional capacity. But we're not going to be able to cut very deeply in exceptional education. So before we throw it open to governing board comment, question, and conversation, just to be very clear with the board and the public, we are seeking action, 3 separate actions, okay? The first one is to begin the performance impact analysis process necessary to recommend the desegregation expenditure reductions that we saw on the first slide. Action number 2 that we're recommending is the immediate transfer of $2.5 million in school nurse salaries and benefits from your M&O budget into Medicaid so we can appropriately reallocate $2.5 million in available M&O to support all of your currently ESSER funded MTSS positions. And then 3 is to implement a 5% expenditure reduction across all administrative departments and reallocate these cost savings of no less than $1.5 million to fund all of our ESSER-funded counselors and social workers, as well as an additional $300,000 necessary to round out the total funding that we need for ESSER-funded MTSS positions. So these are the 3 actions that we're asking the governing board. And with that, I'll turn it over to our board for dialogue, conversation, additional questions, for any more detailed, nuanced questions about the budget. I know our budget very well, but I don't know every single nook and cranny like Mr. Hernandez does. So he's up here to assist me for any of those more detail-oriented questions.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Trujillo, for your presentation. All right, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose, and thank you for the presentation. I want to thank our administration team for the hard work on putting together this proposal tonight. There isn't a single position in TUSD that we don't want to keep if we could. But the question is not just saying yes to everything, but figuring out how to do this with the budget limitations we have. And when we are losing $270 million of federal funds over 3 packages of ESSER or COVID relief funds, it's taken 3 years to get the funds and use them, and it's really taken 3 years in the making to figure out, what is the best way to really allocate district resources to meet the needs of our students and staff in the most effective way. And the Budget Advisory Committee has looked at ESSER-funded positions. We have talked about these positions over the last couple of years, knowing that we would be at this point in 2024 figuring out what to do. And so I think there's some tough decisions and tough things to do, but I think there's a lot of work that has gone into figuring out which positions have the most evidence for improving outcomes for our students, which is really the focus here, whether it's RTI positions or our counseling positions or our MTSS positions or others, which is going to have the highest impact with the resources that we have to really meet the needs of our diverse and high needs student population that we're serving. And so with that said, I do have 2 specific questions I wanted to ask about the proposal tonight. The first question is about the Medicaid. And I know before I ask my question, I want to thank this administration. I know we've had a lot of feedback from the community. We've gotten a lot of feedback as governing board meetings. A lot of the work happens behind the scenes over the last couple of years, and especially the last couple of weeks, trying to figure out where to go with these positions and how to fund them. So I really appreciate all that feedback that we've received and all the feedback the administration has taken from the community and from us to put together these proposals. On the Medicaid, so I know we don't want to spend all $4 million because this is a source of funding that we can't really anticipate per se. This comes from billing, this comes from revenue generation that is hard to predict what's going to happen with Medicaid funding and what we're going to actually have in terms of billable services. So we don't want to butt up against the full amount that we potentially can because there might be changes in the future in terms of how much we're going to get. But I wonder whether we can put the full $2.8 million into the Medicaid so we're not taking from M&O, because I know we have already a shortage in M&O proposed or projected for next year. And that's my first question. And my second, I'll ask that first before my second question. What was the reasoning behind only $2.5 million versus a full $2.8 million to fund MTSS? And would the administration feel comfortable with the full $2.8 million of Medicaid moving nursing salaries into Medicaid funding to free up the money so we don't have to use any of the limited M&O funds for this?
Yeah, I'll invite Mr. Hernandez. If you want to review the recurring costs that we have coming out of Medicaid, that would be great.
So one of the reasons, first, we only have about $2.5 million in school nurse salaries in M&O. We have school nurses that are funded out of grants and other sources of funding. This is the sum total of the M&O cost. We also have additional recurring costs within the Medicaid fund that are already present that need to remain there. So we have some stipends that are paid that Human Resources uses to do recruitment for the very positions that actually generate the funding in Medicaid. We actually provide funding for the Teacher Prep Academy to do some of their work, to hire some of the teachers that we need. So those are, particularly 2 large examples of ongoing expenses, not to the degree of $2.5 million that we need. even though we generate $4 million approximately a year, the fund currently has a fund balance of about $14 million that's accrued over years because we've used it for very limited purposes that are specific to the generation of the revenue. So that's the primary reason we don't want to take the full amount of the revenue, is because we want to make sure that we're leaving revenue there to pay for other recurring costs that are part of the Medicaid fund.
Do you think we can safely do this $2.8 million if we move psychologists and some other salaries that are generating some of the revenue into this?
I do believe this, and one of the reasons is Dr. Gaw is actually implementing. He's going through a current RFP process to implement a system that is going to be tied to our student information system that's going to make claims by nurses more robust with the potential to generate more funding than we currently are generating. So we're investing dollars in a process that essentially is going to generate more revenue for the district through the Medicaid fund.
So I'm sorry, that was a yes, you do feel
Yes.
comfortable with $2.8 million?
Yeah, I do feel
Okay.
comfortable with it, yes.
Okay, so that's something we can potentially propose when we have a final motion. Okay. And my second question is about the budget reductions. And I want to say, I know budget reductions are painful all the time, always. After our conversations, in the board meeting, we addressed this. I can't remember if it was the last one or the one before that. We had a lot of discussion about administrative costs and where else we can come from and how to really share some of the pain that we need to across the district to fund some of these positions. In this case, the counselors and social workers, but just generally, just fund positions that are directly working with our students. And so I want to just apologize first of all to all the departments that are affected by this, but I want to thank everyone for really making the sacrifice that we need to, if the board approves this tonight, to then be able to fund some of these positions that are working directly with students. Can you talk more about which departments are then affected by this, and are these just all administrative costs that are not student facing then that are going into the 5% reduction, and what can we expect with this?
Yeah, these are all central administrative departments. I mean, everything from finance to facilities, transportation exam, technology services, for example, is in there. Every single one of the cuts is based on the non-DSEG M&O allocation that each one of those departments get. So they may get sources of funding like DSEG, they may get sources of funding that are grant-based. All of those are exempt from this cut. It's solely the M&O regular ed, if you will, funding that they're going to be targeted to reducing. The amounts are obviously variable by department. So some larger departments, unfortunately, like technology services, will have a larger share than some of our smaller departments. Like the board office, for example, will have a smaller share to provide into the pot. And that's just relative to what their budget sizes are. Whether it impacts positions or not, that ultimately is going to be dependent on a department by department basis. We're going to provide them their allocation of this 5% reduction as part of our current budgeting process, which goes through March 22nd. Departments are going to have to identify how they're going to fulfill those reductions in their M&O non-DSEC budget.
And so with this, we're not talking about any teachers, we're not talking about any student-facing position, we're talking about any site administrative positions like assistant principals, office managers, and other administrative positions on site. This is really central office administrative.
This is central office. These are departments that are located at 1010 or at LURC. Yeah, these are not teachers. These are not any support staff, paraprofessionals in the schools, for example.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Romero.
So kind of check. Piggybacking on this from Dr. Shaw. So of these 5% reductions in a lot of these other administration areas, is this something that we have looked at over the past? Have we looked at the different areas and said, how can we save money in here? Or is this kind of the first time we've done this in a while to try to get to this, fill this void?
Yeah, this isn't necessarily identifying, are there cost savings in departments that we've identified that amount to approximately 5%. This is taking a look at what we need in order to fund the ESSER-funded counselors and social workers exempt, and then moving the exempt departments out of there and trying to essentially try to get to a number that is sustainable to move the salaries for the ESSER-funded counselors and social workers into M&O. I mean, that really is kind of the practice, is trying to essentially rob Peter to pay Paul, essentially, because we're just moving the cost. The M&O cost is still there. even though we're reducing it in one department, we're just essentially shifting it to another spot in the M&O budget. So it creates a cost neutral effect on the M&O budget, essentially by doing this 5%. The hope is that as departments are provided their amounts, that they will take a look at efficiencies and cost savings and say, where are the things that I can reduce to keep impacts of these cuts as far away from staff as possible, right? So should I be doing less of a different thing, or should I be performing a certain thing a different way? So it will certainly create this impetus amongst the departments to think about efficiencies in their operations to achieve the 5% reduction.
So based on this 5% reduction, this is kind of that magic percentage district-wide for all these departments we need to accomplish this, correct? Is that kind of that over?
That's correct. It'll generate about $2.3 million. So this will, it'll create more money than we actually need, but essentially that creates enough of a cushion in there to allow the board to obviously do other things, because there are other elements of the budget for fiscal year 25 that we have yet to talk about besides ESSER positions. And so we want to make sure that we're kind of a little future focused by using 5% as a, hopefully not only as a starting point, but as kind of the ending point. But, as we have conversations regarding FY25 development with the board, then, that gives us an opportunity to look at other things that we need to do.
So when the departments kind of submit it, are they going to submit it to you, to Dr. Trujillo? Who's going to be kind of their go-to to say, this is what we've come up with our 5%?
They'll submit to finance first.
Okay.
They'll be presented to Dr. Trujillo once it happens. Like I said, we're in the height of budget development right now for fiscal year 25. Departments have a March 22nd deadline to turn in their draft budget requests to us in finance. And so if the board approves this tonight, we will go back to all of their budget models, insert their allocation of the reduction, so that as they submit their budgets, essentially they're planning them within their budgeting process. And then Dr. Trujillo will be, provided a listing of, this is how, the board office will accomplish it, the superintendent's office, and so on, as the reductions are outlined in every budget.
And if, per se, one of the departments says, submits it, but, the finance division says, well, why didn't you look at something like this? Would there be some type of oversight to say, hey, why did you not look at something like this? Or are we strictly letting the departments kind of give us what they want to let go of?
Yeah, so our intent is to leave this at the department level as much as possible, because the operations are so different between all the multitude of operations that we've got, that they are the expertise of what and how they need to do things to serve the schools in the district, right? So even though there will be some finance oversight to make sure that, hey, you're not just cutting all of the benefits line items, but you still have a bunch of salaries, well, you can't really do that. We still need to pay people benefits. So we'll still take a look at some kind of compliance pieces. But, if they decide that they're going to eliminate all of their printing costs, we're not going to debate with them whether that's wise or not. I mean, maybe they've decided that we're done using paper. I mean, if, knock on wood, maybe that happens. But, all we're doing is emailing, all we're doing is scanning, we're using share drives. If that's how they want to shift their business at that department level, we want to leave the department leaders to have that conversation amongst their staff to do that.
Great. Thank you.
Ms. Ekstrom.
Thank you. So some schools don't have interventionists, and they realize that ESSER was going to go away, so they utilize that money to pay for TAs who do interventions. Have we taken that into account for certain schools?
You mean interventionists for those that don't have one?
Well, that they've paid with ESSER funds TAs who do the interventions. They're not RTIs, they're TAs.
They're TAs. So we have done the math on TAs. We've got about 86 of FTEs that are ESSER funded TAs that do interventions, the kind of the small group piece. It's approaching about a $3.5 to $3.6 million price tag in order to do that. That is not part of this proposal. We are not currently proposing additional funding. We'd have to essentially go back and take a look at additional cuts elsewhere in order to accomplish an additional $3.5 million price tag for those TAs. Although, as we mentioned before, we have given an opportunity to those TAs to apply for other positions. It's not necessarily the same, because I understand what you're trying to accomplish. That is currently not part of what we're doing. We did the math, and this is kind of, we're like that. In addition to some of the intervention work that Dr. Trujillo mentioned with the intervention teachers specifically.
I will say, it's like Dr. Shaw said, every single ESSER-funded position, we're not even talking about all the non-academic ESSER positions that played a vital role in the recovery, the learning recovery for our students. All of them played a tremendously vital role. Not to shortchange the TAs. They've done some amazing work. I was at Carrillo last week with the love of reading, and I saw them at work. And it's part of this painful process is making these very, very difficult decisions. Certainly, if we had the additional money, they certainly would be right here with these positions. There's 86 of them. Just a quick update, 27 of the 86 will be funded out of Title I. Their principals did find a way to fit them into the title budget. We hired around 20 TAs at the job fair last week. Now, it is undetermined how many of them are specific ESSER-funded TAs that are moving over and now will work as ex-ed paraprofessionals. But we're certainly continuing to engage them and present opportunities to go work as an ex-ed paraprofessional, where we still have over 50 vacancies. So if you're an ESSER-funded TA and you're watching this and you're interested in a new professional challenge and a new professional journey, consider serving our wonderful exceptional education students as an ex-ed parapro. So just want to put that plug in there as well.
I understand that, but there are some schools who don't have the budget to pick up those TAs. So I was just wondering if we've equitably looked at certain schools who are using TAs as interventionists.
We have, and so the reason why we have not built that into this proposal is twofold. Number one is just funding. We have to come up with some alternative funding strategies just to deal with the financials that we would happily present at an upcoming board meeting. Secondly, we have to go and do some really a deeper level of research, because you have a lot of schools that are employing TAs, and this work is valuable too. I'm not in any way shortchanging it. You have schools that are utilizing your ESSER TAs through an intervention model where they're working with students in small group and helping with some of those direct instructional pieces regarding literacy, like read alouds or math memorization facts for times tables with numeracy. But that's not the case in all the schools. In a lot of our schools, we still have a traditional TA model where it's the logistical, operational aspects of a class, which again, tremendously valuable, especially if you're a kindergarten teacher and you've got 30 kids. That TA handling the logistical aspects of your class unlocks your potential. And so that's a very valuable role to play. We just have not gone through and figured out, okay, which school is employing which model, which of course, if it's the board's pleasure, we would happily do in a subsequent presentation, which of course would present alternative financial strategies. The deeper we get into the budget, because you figure the three strategies that we have here are basically three strategies that will now be off the table for additional positions going forward. So we would have to dig deeper and start looking at some alternative strategies if the conversation was taking a look at some possible funding for TAs.
I guess I would just like to see what the difference in those two positions are, the ones that are doing interventions and then those that are just your typical TAs in the classroom.
They cost the same, right? So financially, yeah, they're going to cost the same. But in terms of us looking at maybe from an academic research perspective, like the schools that are employing the TAs as a part of the overall literacy and numeracy intervention, absolutely, that's something we can definitely do. And make sure that we have that information available.
Thank you.
Board members, any other questions? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. And thank you, Ms. Ekstrom, for bringing up TAs. I think, like all the ESSER fund positions, they all have a place in our district, and they should be preserved. Not just for 1 year, but for the following years. And so I would like to move to direct staff to find a funding source for all of our ESSER-funded TAs.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you.
Just for sake of discussion.
So, yeah, I think, we've heard at other board meetings that there's a lot of other funding sources, that we don't want to tap into necessarily, but that have ample funds that we can use as a board. Our contingency fund is one of them that I think we can look into. And, if it's only 3.6 million, I think, Mr. Hernandez, you said that there's around 30 million, give or take. And, these are really important positions. I know that Tully's facing losing around 6 TAs and in total like 10 employees due to all the other cuts. And so if we can do it, I think we should. If there's a, money available, then we should use it.
So I'll say we would appreciate the opportunity to come back and have a well-developed proposal so that all of you could see each potential funding strategy, its ramifications, its benefits, its impact on things like our credit rating, our bond rating, potential interest rates. And also, I know that a lot in our community, a lot of people in our community, they know that there's $30 million in carry forward. But I always say the board also has almost $20 million in recurring commitments every year. The board, again, $11.5 million salary decompression package from 2 years ago, that has to be built in every single year. The adjustment to nurses' salaries, which well-deserved, that has to be built in every single year. The wonderful move to $15 an hour that the board implemented a few years back, we have to cover those costs every single year. So while we talk about 30 million, I think we also have to talk about the recurring commitments that are a part of the 30 million that have to be covered every fiscal year going forward because of the loss of enrollment. The loss of enrollment, again, of course, represents a shift in about $7 million, little over $7 million of availability in M&O. So we're going to have to take that on. But that's next week. We'll talk about our recruitment and marketing plan. We're excited about that. But I digress. Getting back to it, yes, we certainly would come back with a well-developed funding strategy proposal for your consideration.
Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. So in terms of this motion on the table right now, I think our administration has direction to look at some of the TA positions, especially those that are doing some of the interventions on our site. And some of the, we had a lot of call to the audience letters from Tully, and I appreciate that. And it was just random that I was going there a few days later, something I'd already prearranged to do some level of reading, meet some of the students, and then learn more about what was going on the site. And yes, a lot of the TAs there, my traditional view of what a TA does is really help on classroom management and logistics. And when we have a lot of our classrooms that, had 10, 12, 15, 18 students, that might not be the best use of funding, but when we have our TAs doing a lot of the pull-out programs, interventions, that's a whole different ballpark in terms of what impact they're having on student learning and attainment. And so with the proposal of trying to figure out how to save every single TA when we have so many unfilled positions, especially our ex-ed parapros, that also has a salary boost that still hasn't recruited enough people that really is also making an impact that are empty. I think the administration has direction to look at some other ideas on how to save some of the ones that are doing some of the reading interventions, especially for the schools that decided to use the ESSER money on TAs doing reading interventions as opposed to RTI folks and certified teachers doing interventions. So we don't want to punish the schools that decided to go the more cost-effective route on that. And I don't agree with the motion as is. I think to try to save every single position, one of our jobs isn't just saying, as a governing board member, isn't saying yes to everything and trying to save every single position, but is making hard decisions on how to use the limited sources of funding that we have. And I think our administration has direction on what they need to do and what we need to save, as opposed to trying to save every single position that exists in our district.
Okay, Dr. Shaw. Thank you, Dr. Shaw. Ms. Ekstrom?
Just to clarify, you made a motion to see how we could fund all TA positions.
Correct.
So it's just them coming back with information.
If I may. So I have to agree with Dr. Shaw, just because I feel like we're going to keep kicking this can to the next meeting, to the next meeting, the next meeting, and we're going to have teachers that are going to go sign contracts and other staff that are going to go sign contracts somewhere else because we as a board cannot seem to come to a consensus on what we should be doing when it comes to this. ESSER was great, $270 million. This is something that we should be getting every year, and we're not. So here we are having to make these hard decisions. You know, the financial implications is bigger than DSEG. Mesa, I'm going to point out Mesa Public Schools, because, and their board meetings have been inundated. They are cutting off 400 positions, and they're not filling a good half of them. And so I don't want to see us to become a Mesa Public Schools, because it's pretty awful up there. And so I would, you know, they're the largest district. We're the second largest district in the state, or third, I think now. And I just don't want to see that happen. But our teachers and our staff, I mean, they need to pay their bills. Their children need to eat. So we need to make these decisions. And I understand about the TAs. I mean, one of the TAs was a really big help to my daughter in elementary school. So I'm not discounting their work of any of them, whether they were ESSER funded or otherwise, but we do have other positions, or the district has other positions. And then, you know, Mr. Hernandez, can you speak to if this board decided to use contingency funds for TAs, you said that was 3.5?
Yeah, using Ms. Shaw's example of all the ESSER TAs, we're talking about $3.5 million in wages.
Okay. So, and I think we would have to figure out if contingency is used, would this just be one-time dollars and then allow the district to find something for the next year? But I'm afraid, you know, contingency to me means rainy day, because, you know, they're used for unpredictable costs, right? Something like the Rincon, or teachers, refugee teachers over at Roberts Naylor. Like, I know these funds were used, so I just want the public to understand what that means.
Yeah, and it's actually your recurring financial commitments, like what we invest in employee benefits. That's a steady $2 million every year, and that's probably going to continue to go up. Your $11.5 million decompression package that boosted wages in several areas for our wonderful employees. The salary and compensation package last year was $3 million alone. The move to $15 an hour. The adjustment to the nurse's salary was $500,000. So it's, in addition to rainy day, it's just honoring your financial commitments that are recurring. And don't forget that we're on the hook for utilities that rose to $5 million last year, will probably increase again this year. That's also a recurring cost until we can turn the tide of enrollment. And ideally, you want to turn the tide of enrollment so you're generating that revenue every single year. Just in our debrief this morning, we were talking about, as a leadership team, it doesn't even take a heroic increase of 1,000 students. If we just come in flat next year, right? If we just come in with 50 additional students, that's a swing of about $7 million, right? So this is very feasible. It's a very, very feasible goal for us and all of the wonderful resources and programs that we have in this district to be able to effectuate that outcome. But yeah, you're right. There's a slice of that contingency that's for the rainy day, but the larger part of it, it's also for these recurring expenses that we're responsible for every year.
Okay. Well, I just feel real quickly, I want to make one more comment. You know, the role of us as elected officials on the board is to be steward of finances. So, I mean, I don't think anybody's happy up here that this is where we are. Again, grateful to ESSER, but now we're trying to figure this out in the best way possible. So,
I just have one more comment.
Ms. Ekstrom.
I can fully support these recommendations that are before us, but I can also support having a study session before us to see how to save the TAs. And even if it's not feasible, I would still like to see that information.
Okay. Mr. Romero.
So, I appreciate, Sadie and Ms. Extra bringing in this other one, but I think what we need to kind of focus on, if we can come back later with something on the TAs, but I know we need action, like with the MTSS, we knew all these ESSER things positions were going to be ending. Now we're here on the 11th hour, how to figure out how to save these, where it's most effective in the school. And you've done that many times, Dr. Trujillo, with all the studies that we have done. But I think, we're not going to be able to save the whole world all at one time, but we're going to have to start eating that elephant one bite at a time. And I think making moves towards what we need to do to make these things happen, to save, these other positions, the MTS positions, the counselor positions, and maneuver the money around to be responsible. And like I said, a lot of the other departments in the district are losing some of these monies because of this, and I see we're kind of working together. And I think that's what we need to do. I agree we should come back about the TAs, but I think we should move forward with what we have on the table to the next step.
Okay. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. I think, I know that I expressed that we should keep these TA positions at our last board meeting. I'm pretty sure that Ms. Ekstrom also expressed an interest in that, and so I don't know why administration couldn't throw in a way for us to do that at this board meeting. Each time, all of these things have come to us, it seems like the last 2 or 3 meetings, but each time we get it, it seems to be less and less information on these slides. And you're not doing yourself, you're not helping yourself with this, because we keep wanting more information and you're giving us and the public less and less. And so, really you guys are shooting yourself in the foot on that. I think we can move, honestly, I don't need to see another presentation on this, because I think we really should move forward with funding the TAs now and all of these positions, though I'm going to talk more about item 1 in a moment. But, I think if my colleagues on the board were really interested in fiscal responsibility, they would have considered saving $17.5 million when we sold 1010, and instead move the staff to other areas in our district. All the empty space at schools in our district, because people are leaving in mass. That could have gone very far in our district, but we decided to buy the UA Annex building. And so I don't want to hear all this talk about fiscal responsibility when we're making decisions that contradict those statements. It's not just the contingency fund. We have the plant fund, we have the impact aid, auxiliary rebut fund, Medicaid fund, and I know all of those, have a purpose, but I don't see how we're expecting students to come back to our district if we're expecting our schools to operate with a skeleton crew. And so I'm just asking my colleagues to, really think about what we're doing each meeting and fund these positions that are so desperately needed.
Okay. Well, I think we've got a motion on the table from Ms. Shaw to add to have the administration come back with TAs. So, Ms. Barboa, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes.
Mr. Romero?
No.
Dr. Ravi?
No.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose?
No. Okay, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. I'll make a motion to approve the recommendations on the slide here with the one change of making the $2.8 million instead of the $2.5 million. And I'll let the administration have other relevant positions like psychologists or something else that's relevant to our Medicaid billing in terms of what other positions that we move from M&O1 to here to free up the money for our MTSS positions.
Okay. I'll second. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. So about the first recommendation of facilitating and performance impact analysis, I don't know why you all are asking us to approve of this when in the past, as you all must know, we never had to take action to ask administration to go ahead and do a performance impact analysis. I don't remember that ever happening. And so I wonder why it's happening now. As the public remembers, in our January 30th board meeting, we all approved the motion to ask staff to conduct a community forum. That was literally the language in the motion, and I'll read it so you believe me. Amend the motion on the table that this item comes back to the governing board on how to fund our RTI programs working on academic achievement, as well as the other things on slide 8 in terms of potential redistribution of a budget after community forums and listening has occurred. And we all voted for that, and it passed. And so Dr. Trujillo, like, why
Sure.
are you not listening to the board?
I appreciate the feedback, but I respectfully disagree. We're not asking for your action tonight. As I explained to the community and the public, a performance impact analysis is exactly what Board Member Shaw stated. We have to go before the public. We have to answer questions before the public. You cannot vote on the matter until we do that. So in a sense, we're honoring the motion. And for Board Member Shaw's first point, the community gave us the feedback that we can't just rely on posting things on the website and assume that everybody is going to be engaged and informed. We can't just assume that we can shoot off on our own and start creating a PIA that the governing board doesn't know about, especially around DSEG, and that the community doesn't know that we have authorization to do. To me, the community has given me that feedback. The PIA process is going to be inclusive of a forum, of an informational session that has to be conducted before we're standing before you and asking for action. I will repeat, there is no action being recommended here this evening. There is no action being taken to reallocate desegregation funds in any area. You've seen a first level reallocation proposal as it is right now. With action tonight would go into the PIA process, would return to you after community input sessions for a potential vote in compliance with what we've agreed to, not only with your motion from January 30th, but also with our post-unitary status accountability and reporting plan.
Well, with all due respect, Dr. Trujillo, we've had a month, or you've had a month, to conduct a PIA for all of these items at our board meeting in December. And before that, I don't believe we asked or took action for the PIA that was presented at the January 30th meeting to, initiate a PIA. And so it seems like you all, the administration, are kicking the can down the road. I think the motion I read was very clear that we asked staff to first conduct that community forum before these items were brought back to the board, not that it would come back twice already and then you'd ask us to initiate the PIA. And so I think, if we want to act in good faith, that community forum needs to happen. And if you want to let the community know when that date will be, I believe you stated it will be in March, beginning of March.
I thank Governing Board Member Shaw for her feedback. I await direction from the board. I'm asking for action on anything requiring desegregation at this point.
Okay. Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. On January 30th, the main concern that folks were addressing were the 7 or so positions in the EDI department, administrative positions. And then from my understanding is that they've taken that feedback and not included those positions into the proposal before us tonight. That the RTI positions and the reallocation in DSEG is not including any changes to our student services departments or our EDI department based on the feedback that we received on January 30th. And so I feel that our administration is holding true to what we've promised and what we've asked the board, as a board, for our administration to do in terms of this. And I understand that before we have any action to do any reallocation from DSEG, there will be a community forum and some time to get more feedback to make sure that any of these proposed changes that are really focusing on equity, which is, of course, making sure our students can read and write and do basic math in the way that we know that they need to, is addressed.
Ms. Ekstrom.
Dr. Trujillo, can you just give an example of what that community forum would look like?
Well, we'll announce it publicly. And Jean, can you go to the first slide? The one for DSEG. Yeah, the clicker, I guess, ran out of charge. I didn't. If you go to the presentation, it's the DSEG slide. I think it's like slide 3. Right there. We will have the directors of every single one of those departments. We'll present line item by line item what the cost reduction would represent for anybody in attendance, and we would answer any questions. It would literally be that. It's not just going to be like this. We'll bring up Sky, Ms. Sachko for ALE. We'll bring up Dr. Freitas for assessment and evaluation. We'll bring up everybody, and then we'll do a public walkthrough of the PIA at that point.
And then anybody in attendance can ask questions?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep.
Ms. Shaw.
And Dr. Trujillo, when will that community forum take place?
As soon as we can do it. I think at this point, we're probably looking at after the spring break, which of course means that we're not going to be able to bring it back to the governing board until that is successfully completed, which potentially would set up a second governing board meeting in March, which would be the 27th. It is essential that we get it done in this time frame because of the April 15th notice requirement for our teachers. And so the purpose, of course, is to continue funding the classroom teaching positions, RTI, reading and math interventionists. So for us, we are under that deadline. We have to get this done, meaning community forum, listening session completed, back to the governing board, and having to do that prior to the meeting on the 27th, and then potential action by the governing board on March 27th, which of course would be in advance of our April 15th notice requirement.
Okay. All right, well, we've got a motion on the floor. So, Ms. Barboa, if you can do a roll call vote, please.
Oh, you know what?
Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Romero.
Dr. Shaw, can you just clarify the motion you wanted to, instead of the 2.5, you wanted 2.8?
Right, so the motion on the table, then if we go to that slide, Jean, the second to last slide, I believe, the only change from the slide, a few more slides forward, there we go, that one. The only change from the slide was that to transfer the number 2, transfer 2.8 million instead of 2.5 million. And I know that the nurses and salaries and benefits from M&O is 2.8 million. So I think we can defer to administration to figure out other positions, such as psychologists or others that are coming from M&O to make up that other $300,000 so that we move $2.8 million from Medicaid to fund those positions, freeing up the full $2.8 million that we need for the MTSS positions. So we're not moving money from MMO, which is already limited for those positions.
And Mr. Hernandez, do you think you were comfortable with that extra $300,000?
Yeah, our recurring annual revenue is around $3 to $4 million, depending on the claims that we do. So it's been hovering actually quite high lately. And like I said, we are implementing a process to make that process more efficient so that essentially the revenue will continue to go up. So it is sustainable at 2.8 million if that's what you want to do.
Okay.
Okay.
Madam President.
Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. I know we're getting ready to vote on this, but I'd like to take these separately with the first recommendation being done separate from the second and third.
So taking the first one separately?
I'd like to
I
move
should
to
split the question then.
Yes.
Okay. So,
So you'd like to split number 1 from 2 and 3?
Correct.
Okay.
okay.
So we'll vote on it separately then.
Okay.
It's a split motion then.
All right, so
Does it need a second for a split?
this I'm not familiar with.
This has not come up yet in the 3 years that we've been on
Yeah,
the board.
right?
The technical term in Robert's rules is divide the question.
Divide the question.
And you do not have to. You can ask unanimous consent to do that. So.
Okay, so board members, are you okay with voting 1 on its own and 2 and 3 together?
Yes.
Okay. Ms. Barboa, can we do number 1? Roll call vote, please.
Ms. Ekstrom,
Yes.
Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Dr. Ravi,
Yes.
Ms. Shaw,
No.
Ms. Luna Rose.
Yes. Okay, item passes 4-1 with Ms. Shaw dissenting. And now items 2 and 3. Roll call vote, please, Ms. Barboa.
Ms. Ekstrom,
Yes.
Mr. Romero,
Yes.
Dr. Ravi,
Yes.
Ms. Shaw,
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose.
Yes. And that item passes 5-0. Okay. Thank you, Dr.
Yes,
Trujillo
good job.
and Mr. Hernandez.
Can I say, Ms. Leno, I think this is a big win for this reading intervention and math intervention for our students around our district. There's a lot of important positions that are doing some great work, and I'm really glad that we have been able to find funding to keep some of these positions long-term, and not just one-time funding, but recurring funding that makes these positions permanent in our district.
Thank
a big win tonight.
And point of privilege, if I may also say that.
Yes, Ms. Shaw.
Thanks. It's a big win, but it's also a big loss since at this point we're undetermined if we're going to keep those so needed TAs. And so I'm not celebrating tonight. But I'm glad that we could keep our counselors and our MTSS and social workers. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And yes, and thank you to the board for the hard work on this. I know it's a lot. Okay, so I do believe we are moving to consent agenda. Approval of consent agenda 6.3 through 6.9. Dr. Trujillo?
Yes, President Luna Rose, members of the governing board, I would like to present for your consideration consent agenda as arranged, items 6.3 to 6.9.
Okay, I'll move the item.
I'll second.
All right,
Ms.
move.
Luna Rose?
Yes.
Dr. Trujillo had removed 6.2?
Oh, yes, he
You
did.
said 6.3.
I did, yeah, add
Yeah.
agenda
Oh,
adjustments,
okay.
yes.
Okay, so 6.3 to 6.9 moved by myself and seconded by Dr. Shaw. All those in favor say aye.
Discussion.
Oh, yes, I'm sorry, Ms. Shaw.
Sorry. A little too quickly for me. 6.8, I just had a quick question about 6.8, if I may ask that.
Absolutely, yes.
Okay. So yeah, this is about our IGA with Pima County Juvenile Court Center, and I was just wondering if they could talk more about what the training of, excuse me, if they can describe more about the types of programs and services that they provide to our students who enter the juvenile justice system.
Yes, I can say at a very high level that TUSD, of course, we serve a number of students that are currently in the juvenile justice system. And so right off the bat, I want to assure everybody on the board and the community, this IGA only involves the sharing of data, grades, attendance, discipline, student-related data, the sharing of that information to the Pima County Juvenile Court Center only for court-involved students that we have. So with regard to what kind of programs and resources will be available, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Cameron Taravati. He's our Senior Director for EDI, works directly with our magnets, but also has a background himself working in an alternative environment, the Pima County Prevention School, right? You were there for a bit, so take it away.
Good evening, board members. President, how are you tonight? So, yes, I have a long, extensive background with alternative education. And with us tonight, we have some guests from juvenile courts And so that's Nadi Mohammed behind me and Miss Jennifer as well. And so we're here tonight to seek your approval for this IGA, which basically could give wraparound supports to adjudicated youth who just really need those additional services. That could be behavioral health support. That could be support to support students with dropout prevention services, that kind of support. So that's why this IGA is just really needed.
Mr. Terravati,
Yeah,
how many students would this serve?
about 500.
Okay. Any other questions, board members?
Yeah, thank you for that information.
Sure.
I think this is really important work, and I think all of you who are here today to speak on that. And, I just want to plug our Alternative Education Advisory Committee that will be voting on 10 members tonight. That there's 3 vacancies. If you have any people or yourselves want to serve on that committee, because I know we serve a lot of students who go through those courts. I would like to invite you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I just want to say, I look forward to perhaps a presentation later on how this is going, this program is going.
Yeah, absolutely. We can make that happen for you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Thank
Okay.
you.
All right, so we have a motion and table on the floor. Okay, all those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? All right. Consent agenda passes. Okay, so we are now on 7.2, Proclamation of Math Week, March 4th to the 17th, 2024. Dr. Trujillo.
Members of the governing board, I'd like to turn it over to our guest this evening. I know we have several that will be taking to the microphone to talk about Math Week proclamation. But I know we have some teacher guests from Cragen Elementary. Senia Lochani, welcome. I know that we first met when you were at, what's the school again, the small one? Ochoa. You were at Ochoa Community School, and then you went over to where you're at now, Cragen. We also have Carolyn Sharp, our PDAT, our Professional Development Academic Trainer. And then I think we have Heidi here somewhere. But with that, I will turn it over to you to do the honors.
Thank you, Dr. Trujillo. Good evening, President Luna Rose, governing board members, and Dr. Trujillo. My name is Dana Islas, and I'm the Program Manager of Academic Standards. And it's my privilege to introduce you to Lochani Senya, who will read our math proclamation. Lochani Senya is in her 6th year teaching in TUSD, and she is currently a 5th grade teacher at Cragen. Prior to this, she taught English as a second language in K-12 classrooms in Sri Lanka, Singapore, and China. For the past 2 years, she's been developing and facilitating math workshops as a teacher leader for the Center for Recruitment and Retention of Mathematics Teachers at the University of Arizona. She also presents at local and national math conferences such as MEAD, TOTOS, and NCTM on topics that promote teaching math equitably. Knowing firsthand what it is like to be ridiculed and chastised for struggling with math at school, Lochani is defiant about ensuring her learners experience math differently. As they figure problems out, make mistakes, and debate strategies, all as one tight-knit class community, Lochani and her young mathematicians realize math is meaningful, fun, and above all, humanizing. Recently, Lochani was a finalist for the Center for Recruitment and Retention of Mathematics Teachers and Arizona Association of Teachers of Mathematics Excellence and Resiliency in Mathematics Teaching Award. And I'm going to pass this over to Lochani so she can read our math proclamation.
Esteemed board members, I'm honored to read the Mathematics Week proclamation for March 4th to the 17th, 2024. Whereas mathematics is used every day in the home, community, and in the workplace, which makes mathematical literacy essential for all citizens to function effectively in society. And whereas mathematics is the foundation of discipline for science, technology, engineering, mathematical reasoning, analysis, and problem solving are increasingly vital in preparing our youth to lead productive and responsible lives in an ever-changing world. And whereas a working knowledge of mathematics is critical to understanding and contributing to an increasingly technological world. And whereas mathematics is a living and growing discipline, continually being created and discovered, the power of mathematics is revealed in the richness and beauty of its intellectual structure and the diversity of its applications to almost every field of human endeavor. And whereas mathematics describes our natural, technological, and sociological environments, and whereas TUSD commits to fair and equitable teaching practices, high expectations for all students, and access to rich, rigorous, and relevant mathematics, and strong family and community relationships to promote positive mathematical learning and achievement. And whereas during this week, we recognize the importance of mathematics, and we ask that all citizens endeavor to learn more about mathematics, improve their skills, and acknowledge the innumerable benefits of mathematical skills. Therefore, the governing board of the Tucson Unified School District does hereby proclaim March 4th to the 17th, 2024 as Mathematics Week.
Great. Yes, Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. As a self-proclaimed math nerd and a former math lead, I would love the honor of moving this item.
You
I'll
would.
second. And I would just like to say I enjoyed visiting your classroom. It was great to see everybody working and learning. And they weren't just sitting there, they were up and running around. So thank you so much.
Okay. Well, moved by math nerd Dr. Shaw and seconded by Ms. Ekstrom. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Congratulations and thank you for coming tonight. And I am not a math nerd, but I can read. We're going to be going to 7.3. Approval of contracts for certificated staff of the Tucson Unified School District for the 24-25 school year. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Luna Rose, governing board members, I'd like to welcome our Chief Human Capital Officer, Mr. Fernandez, to take us through this item.
Good evening, Madam President and members of the board. Presented to you today is a list of over 2,600 TEA certificated staff who are proposed to be offered contracts for school year 2024-2025. So this includes continuing probationary and temporary teachers and staff recommended for renewal. Upon your approval, this will allow us at Human Resources to start issuing contracts starting tomorrow, if the approval goes through tonight, and hopefully completing by March 8th, to be able to issue contracts to these employees and to get them returned in order to secure their positions for the coming year. So that is the list provided to you for your review, and we're looking for your approval this evening. Thank you.
Okay. Board members, any questions for Mr. Fernandez? Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Mr. Fernandez, can you remind us when the deadline is for approving contracts for teachers?
So even though we brought you the bulk of the contracts, you're not required to renew all of them today. Usually we have a couple of rounds for TEA certificated staff, plus the ELI and non-bargaining. So they usually come to you over the next couple of months. The official notice requirement for certificated individuals is April 15th. That's the deadline to provide notice to those employees who will not be renewed. And then May 15th is the deadline for those who are not certificated. So any teacher or for instance, would need to be notified by April 15th. So that would be the deadline.
April 15th for all certificated staff?
Correct.
Okay, because I know we're missing some people here and we want to approve them as soon as possible. Thank you.
Dr. Shaw.
I'll move the item.
I will second. Okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Fernandez.
Thank you.
We are moving to 7.4, Substance Reduction and Prevention Task Force Settlement Fund Spending Recommendations. Dr. Trujillo.
I want to turn this item over to our Director for Health Services, Dr. Joseph Gaw. Excited about this item. I think this task force has done some absolutely amazing work, and I think it will change the face of how we deal with addiction and students struggling with substance misuse across the district. Dr. Gaw.
Well, good evening, members of the board, superintendent, members of the public. We are here to present you with the dual settlement recommendations from the task force that was established back in September of last year. We basically are proposing to you 3 different options tonight. So the mission, so you should accept it, is to pick one of the 3, hopefully. Otherwise, to advise us on what you would rather change back at the task force. So, extremely briefly for the members of public, so if they are not aware, the task force was established on September, the 20th of September in 2023. The project is projected to close on March the 31st of this year. So bringing this to you today, we are actually way ahead of schedule, so that is good. The actual charge was to propose a way to burn down spend about $900,000 per year, specifically from the dual settlement funding sources. We were charged with basically to provide a tier 1 proposal on spending, and then also provide a tier 2 of how to spend the additional funding sources should they not be spent in tier 1. With that being said, the project scope specifically was focused on creating programs and a curriculum that would support students that are engaged with substance abuse or disorder, as well as things like vaping and such of that nature. One of the things that was very important to note that what was not in scope, we were not to address the student code of conduct in any way. With that being said, we engaged with multiple stakeholders as well. The impacted populations included the students, the parents and families, the school overall community, and the overall public community where the school serves. And the task force included members of the Tucson Unified School District, the Pima County Health Department, and some private sector as well. We, as a task force, defined what the success metrics of this task force would be. Basically, the submission and the approval of phase 1 or tier 1 and tier 2 pending proposals. It's important to note that that this task force did not cost the district any funding at all. This was completely voluntary, and the task force members basically contributed about $12,000 of time and energy into this. That is very important that we all understand that, because these are professionals in the community that have taken time for the district that would be away from their normal practice. So during this process, the task force had identified several challenges. We determined that the action plans that were particularly being proposed for substance abuse and substance disorder were being created by non-healthcare oriented folks. The MTSS process was actually kind of is very heavy on reactionary approaches rather than a educational or a approach to prevent substance use. And we also noticed that there was a lot of projects that were happening all over our district that were doing the same thing, but they were not combined, right? And then if you're not aware, Pima County and all the entities all over Tucson has so many resources available to our community that we don't even know they exist. So there's so much out there. And then finally, we found that that counseling was doing their thing, health services is doing their thing, and safety is doing their process as well. And we had a combined value need to come together as a unit. Now, the proposals that you're going to hear today basically will increase the access to our community with health-focused, with professionals who are healthcare focused. It will also help to support and align the current MTSS process, which we heard there was need for support in that particular area today. We also are bringing student success initiatives into this. We have some fabulous partners here who will also speak here in a minute that will show the commitment between internal entities within TUSD and the external as well. And you're going to see basically a proposal that would increase the ability and the opportunity to help students who are in this particular needs group to be successful in their path of learning. With that being said, we're going to now introduce you to a new concept. And I'm going to turn this over to a colleague of mine, Lee, who will also introduce herself and speak more about this particular position.
Thank you, Dr. Gaw. Can you hear me okay? Never know. Good evening, Dr. Trujillo and members of the board. My name's Lee Ituli Clayson. I'm a program manager at the Pima County Health Department. We have the fortunate opportunity, and I have actually for the past 8 years of being with the health department, to do quite a bit of work with the Tucson Unified School District through tobacco prevention activities. As you can imagine, it's been a much needed resource and service for young people in our communities and in this within and around the school community. You'll be able to read some information on this slide, but I wanted to just read some background information, and I really appreciate you allowing me the space today to briefly reflect on the history, the role, and the impact of local community health workers, otherwise known as CHWs. CHWs are uniquely qualified to address the health priority needs of the community and often strengthen community ties with organizations across all sectors, given that they share a common language, belief system, and experiences with their community members. They are key to connecting and improving linkages to healthcare, resources, and other services that address social determinants of health. They often seek to engage and motivate people to take positive actions for their well-being. Through ongoing training and connections with other CHW colleagues, they have the tools and the skills to increase community connections and bridge oftentimes difficult to access healthcare systems to underserved or diverse populations throughout Pima County and across the state of Arizona, nationally. CHWs truly are health advocates whose work never ends, most times 24/7, to meet folks and families where they are in life. I've learned so much from our local CHWs, and from my learning and experiences and the fortunate opportunities I've had of working with them, that's impact the work that we do at the health department and how we plan and write and put strategies into place with community partners. Employing community health workers at the Pima County Health Department has been a long-standing goal that was jump-started by the pandemic. Our department expanded the existing CHW workforce capacity to address COVID-19 and its impact on social determinants of health. We worked to increase proficiency in CHW core competencies by coordinating trainings and collaborating with key partners knee-deep in an effort to expand CHW workforce across Arizona. Our department CHWs are invaluable team members who have been highly successful with expanding service delivery, health resources, and vital health information. Our organization is finalizing a restructure plan to increase and support CHW workforce internally and externally in both urban and rural areas of Pima County. We continue to recognize the incredible value of a CHW workforce that is aligned with working with community-based interventions, and the department will be expanding the capacity and the capability to address health priorities and advance health equity across various sectors moving forward. PCHD, the health department, will build on this work by supporting partner CHW workforce. We'll continue to assess community-based efforts aimed at addressing the broadly defined needs of Pima County residents, provide awareness training and linkage to technical assistance for organizations who are recruiting and or growing CHW workforce. There are also several promising practices occurring across the state aimed to address comprehensive core competency training, disease prevention and management training with partners, and sustained funding for health services through CHW education, intervention, and referrals. We look forward to continued partnership with TUSD school community, students, staff, and of course with board members. Our partnership has served as the most meaningful path for PCHD to enhance services and health with gratitude for community members and for partners. And now I'll hand it over to my colleague, Michael Webb.
All right. Thank you, Lee. And before I begin, it is paramount to me in my professional capacity to say that Dr. Ga has done an exceptional job in project managing this. You have a true advocate for young people, and I am convinced that your youth communities are going to thrive even more into tomorrow because of the hard work that he does. So thank you, Dr. Ga. I am here to read a letter of support from Dr. Teresa Cullen, the Director of the Health Department. To whom it may concern, I am writing on behalf of the Pima County Health Department to express our wholehearted support for recommendations put forth by the TUSD Substance Abuse and Disorder Task Force regarding the Jewel Labs settlement. PCHD is fully committed to endorsing this vital initiative, and we eagerly anticipate the opportunity to collaborate in making a significant impact on the health of youth in our community. Please consider this letter as a formal commitment from PCHD to allocate resources and expertise in alignment with the plan outlined by the TUSD Substance Abuse and Disorder Task Force. Specifically, we pledge to support TUSD's work through the following initiatives. Number 1, collaborative development of a school-based CHW curriculum. PCHD will work alongside TUSD, the Arizona Community Health Workers Association, and the identified academic or workforce entity selected in the RFP process to support this project. Number 2, development of a standardized screening tool or tools for social determinants of health. PCHD will provide content expert consultation and technical assistance to ensure a tool is created to best serve TUSD students and families of highest need. And number 3, technical assistance, continuing education, and programmatic support of TUSD CHW workforce. PCHD's CHW workforce will provide ongoing support through training opportunities and the application of PCHD programs in schools within the 5 regions of TUSD. PCHD takes immense pride in being provided the opportunity to participate in the TUSD Substance Abuse and Disorder Task Force over the past several months. Our commitment to this initiative remains steadfast and resolute. As the Pima County Health Director, I have actively supported the initiatives to enhance youth behavioral health outcomes in our community. Recognizing the gravity of these issues as a paramount public health concern, we firmly believe that this project holds the potential to effect substantial and enduring improvements in the lives of young people. We are confident that our collaborative efforts in partnership with TUSD will help bring about meaningful change in the realm of youth behavioral health in Pima County. Together, we can provide the necessary support, resources, and education to empower our youth to lead healthier and happier lives. Thank you for considering our strong endorsement of these recommendations. We look forward to possibly working closely with TUSD to create a brighter future for our community's youth. Respectfully, Teresa Cullen. Thank you. And I'll turn it back over to Dr. Gaw.
All right, so let's get to the quick proposals here. We have option 1, 2, and 3. So option 1, and I apologize of how busy this particular slide is, but we show a 8-year burn down proposal here that basically encompasses about $900,000 a year. It includes, particularly with option 1, we are proposing that a designated position for a program manager be created. We purposely did not address the details of that position except what a program manager is defined as within the current human resources structure here at TUSD. Should you approve or choose to approve option 1, we would create a task force that would design this particular position to ensure that we are we locate the correct person to fill the shoes of this position. It's going to be a novel position. They're going to be developing this entire program. So with that being said, the program manager would be funded on a 12-month contract for the entire 8 years. They would be responsible to supervise 5 CHWs, 1 per school region. They would be funded for their complete training, a new program specific for school substance abuse disorders, which, by the way, would be a novel concept in K-12 schools. And it would also pay for their ability to become to be certified at the state. Why is that important? Because the state has actually approved that some of the services that a CHW engages in can be reimbursed through good old access as well, okay? The other component is to give them a budgetary stipend in there to be able to engage in their work particularly with events of outreach, travels, such of that nature. And then finally, we would locate a nationally approved program that has really strong outcomes, and that would become the foundational prevention and educational program to augment the current gap in the MTSS process. Okay. So option number 2 basically is the same thing, but we add one more level in there. So there's a program manager and there's a program coordinator as well. Why is that important? A CHW is an entry-level public health care professional. We want to provide the opportunity for people who have lived experience other than a specific college education or degree to be able to advance into a system, right? Because the lived experience component with connectivity to the public to get people engaged in a program to recover or prevent the use of substances is very important when you have people that have that lived experience as well. So we want to provide a career approach that keeps them in our system, right? And so obviously, if we do that, we're going to take funding sources from the program RFP and support that that service. Then in option number 3 is basically we take the human resource component out of it and we invest in all software and program support systems, and we invest in stipends as well because the current employee base would have to pick up any monitoring or the appropriate implementation of these particular programs. It would also include things like an early alert system, social media support as well, and also to ensure that we support the current employee groups who would be doing this work. It's important that you know, if you were to choose option 3, the components that the task force believe was the key entity and essence of our proposal is the wraparound human connection that is very well documented in the research that you need to guide people into that pathway. So, but it was important that we provided you a third non-human involved option. Tier 2 suggestions include things like the establishment of screening tools, engaging with consultants that are experts in the area of screening tool development, research, and ensuring the quality assurance aspect to that. Engaging more in the current program with the youth mental health first aid training. It does cost a lot to train trainers to that. So funding would be applied to that as well. We talked about the application of social media software tracking, which is very is a topic that would have to be discussed should you choose that process. And also to engage in clubs and sporting events and that sort of thing to help support whatever tier 1 you choose. It's important to know that should you choose option 1 or 2 or even option 3, the chances of having enough money from the $900,000 to support tier 2 on top of the tier 1 is probably unlikely. And the nice part about the tier 1 suggestions, probably more so with tier 1 and tier 2, or option 1 and option 2, is that the rollover funds that we support can sustain it longer than 8 years if there was more funding in there. Lastly, the proposal is seeding future need. For example, we can use this particular process to seed a long-term plan through grants and that sort of thing, because this is a kind of a novel idea. It has been an absolute pleasure working and leading our task force on this. We met a lot of really neat people in our community, and we definitely have expanded our reach out there as well. And other programs in TUSD are being generated from this particular process. So though we're talking about jewel funds today, you'll see other programs coming down the pike later on that started out of this process as well. With that being said, that concludes our presentation. We will now be open for your questions.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Gaw, for the presentation, and our guest from Pima County Health Department. Questions? Dr. Shaw.
Great. Thank you, President Luna Rose, and thank you, Dr. Gaw. Thank you, Lee and Michael, for being here. I can't see you, Lee. For being here. And I want to thank every member of this task force, some great names and great folks who really gave their input into the process. Our goal when we created the task force last year, we have this unique opportunity of having these settlement funds. I think before Loyola cost $10 or $11 million, and after all the legal fees, we had the $7.2 million that we had. A unique opportunity to really make a long-term impact on substance use and mental health for our students. And this isn't just in a 1 year, 2 year, let's quickly go through this and do some things. But this is a whole generation, 8 years, maybe longer. I'm not sure if all of Jewel and Altria was included in this, but we had 2 settlements, but hopefully even longer than this amount of years. And just the enormous impact it's going to make a whole generation of students coming up through our system. And this is great. And I love having a task force. The reason we created a task force was to really get out of our own heads of what we think is best for schools and really get experts from outside of schools, public health experts, physicians on the ground in addiction medicine, others in academia and research, to really give us some great recommendations on how to use this money. And we never even talked about community health work. I didn't even thought about that being the recommendations. I was surprised to see that, and I'm surprised and not surprised. Surprised because it's something we hadn't discussed, and not surprised. I've worked with community health workers a lot of my career, especially my time in the mobile health program. I was the medical director of our free clinic, the U of A Family Medicine Mobile Health Program, and we had community health workers that we used to do some of the things in the slide in terms of the education and the community outreach and the navigation of so many different resources that we needed for our patients in the mobile health program, most of whom were uninsured, underinsured, a lot of them undocumented, and other kinds of risk factors for poor outcomes in their health. And so this is great to see this. And you guys didn't go into this, but I know there's a lot of evidence out there, a lot of research done about the important impact that community health workers can make on diabetes education and hypertension education and so many other things. And I'm glad to see us implementing the strategy for mental health and substance use. So thank you for bringing together this proposal, and thank you for the task force for this. I have two questions specifically about these proposals. One of them on the prevention education programs. Well, what kind of elements do you see coming to us, and coming to the district? I think, with the first proposal, there was about half the money, $450,000 was being spent on prevention education programs. How do you see this moving forward? Is it and spending that much money? Is it purchasing a program? Is it having partnerships with outside agencies and implementing this education and training program to help on prevention? What do you see in that line item?
Yeah, so there are so many evidence-based programs out there right now that should you approve option one or actually any of those particular options, the RFP process will begin for that program. There is a ton of them out there. Some of them engage peer sponsors. Some of them engage the instruction in the classroom. Some engage just a cultural change as well, right? So we looked at so many programs in this task force, and they all have benefits, they all have their challenges, right? But we would need to, depending on what option you choose to go with, based on our cost factor to that, we would definitely need that. There's going to be another group that's going to be created to look specifically at that. Because this program manager would be localized under the director of social emotional learning and counseling. So we want their content expertise to kind of guide that particular process. With the county's help to that, we can now start to look and see where the best outcomes possible are there for every student in TUSD, right? Because it's not just about people who are in the system, it's about the people that are thinking about getting into that process or being exposed to the substances or the smoke shop that's across the street from the school, right? The reality is that we need to build a program or encompass a program that will touch every one of those stages. We have been very clear within our task force. We are not to reinvent the wheel for that particular program. We're going to basically go for the most cost-effective program that gets the most outcomes.
Thank you for that. One suggestion I have, if we do approve one of the tier 1 options tonight, a lot of the tier 2 spending recommendations might be incorporated into that RFP process. A lot of the things that are mentioned in slide 11 can probably be done by whatever agency that we're going to partner with for that. So I don't think we would lose out on some of those tier 2 support recommendations, but we can include those into the request for proposals. Like, hey, these are some of the other things that we know are going to make a difference that we didn't have in the original 900,000, but that can be included in the 450 that we're spending in year 1 and beyond. My second question, we have some really good proposals and a lot of different positions and other things proposed. Was there like a vote or some kind of sense of hey, this is our top choice out of the 3 options and want to give us some other proposals so we can help kind of vet that? Or was it was really option 1, option 2, option 3, whatever, all these were really good and whatever the board decides tonight?
Sure. So the task force kind of were leaning towards option 2 in there because the more human connection we can get, the stronger the potential outcomes, right? But remember, that also includes the type of person that's in that role. So we would have to be, one of the concerns of our task force was when we do develop these particular positions, should the board approve to go forward on that, Julie's team is going to create a task force to look at the criteria in there, right? To ensure that we get the right people in the right place. But I can tell you, and correct me if I'm wrong, we put option 3 in there as a, because it would be, it's you need to have alternative options than to position development, right? New FTE, right? But I would say that the task force was not very supportive of option 3, but we felt it should end up included. But there was a lot of tons of other discussion, including peer groups, such of that nature. But the task force voted that this proposal that you have today is what they support.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Ekstrom.
Thank you, Dr. Gaw and Lee and Michael, for being here. I would support option 2 as something that we should move forward with. Just being in the throes of COVID and working for a board of supervisor and seeing how community health workers really helped change the trajectory of wearing masks and getting information out there. I really believe that having a program manager, program coordinator, and then the community health workers will really help TUSD. So I really like option 2 a lot. And I thank Dr. Cullen for also providing that letter and, really giving support to TUSD, because I think us working together is just going to make us a healthier community. So that's my vote, option 2.
Thank you. Board members, any other questions? Ms. Shaw.
Excuse me. Thanks, Dr. Gaw, and thank you to you both for being here and presenting on this. So Dr. Shaw kind of asked some of the questions I was interested in posing to you in regards to the prevention and education program. So correct me if I'm wrong, but this is like we're putting out the RFP for a curriculum.
Yeah, so hi again. My name is Michael Webb. I'm the program manager for youth and school communities. So as a task force, we went back and forth on what would be the best approach. And I think we always came back to wanting to be human-centered. And we wanted to make sure that whatever approach took place, or approaches, I should say, really was a reflection of our richly diverse community here, but also mirrored the complexity of the challenges young people are facing today. So we have talked about a couple of scenarios. Perhaps there is one organization that has the subject matter expertise and can really hit all of the like itemized specifications that we would look for in that proposal. Perhaps it's multiple organizations. We even talked about a district by district in your 5 districts for TUSD having an organization assigned. We know that demographically our city of Tucson looks differently depending on what intersection you're standing in, right? And what I will say is in terms of the selection process, and Dr. Gaw has alluded to formulating another task force to guide the actual hiring and implementation process. On behalf of Pima County Health Department, we're committed to doing whatever it takes to make sure that your district, your students are supported to live as happy and healthy as they can. That includes students who are, in violation of your code of conduct for substance use, paraphernalia, et cetera, but also all of your students who have not reached that point yet. And so we've taken a really comprehensive approach that focused on being culturally responsive and trauma informed. And so I share all of that because that's the impetus in wanting to go out to bid for this in a request for proposals.
Okay, thank you. I have a couple more questions. So I just want to make it clear, and maybe Mr. Ross can speak on this. So originally we were waiting for some change in the structure of our ability to use some of these funds for the things that we're seeing here today. So that actually did go through?
Ms. Shaw, it has not yet. It's still pending in the legislature. However, I think Mr. Hernandez had reported to you previously that in the meantime, if there's need for this expenditure of the Jewel funds, then basically you'll just transfer out of the legal department because that's where litigation recovery funds can be spent is for legal costs, and just transfer it out and expend the funds on the projects that the board approves.
I see. Okay.
We're very hopeful about that legislation.
Okay, thanks for clarifying. And then also, is there a time frame in when we would need to spend down this money, Mr. Ross?
No, there is not. It's a continuing fund, the litigation recovery fund.
Okay, great. So another question I have is that is some of these, like for the prevention and education program, is any of that or those allocated costs or elsewhere in any of these options, could they or will they go to those students who do indeed have a substance abuse disorder, an active one, for something such as fentanyl or other serious drugs? Are we using some of this funding to help those students go to rehab?
So, based on our particular proposal, that would not be included in this particular proposal at this time. The program would basically be educating and preventing students from use, right? The MTSS process is kind of heavy on response, right? But it doesn't really focus on keeping people out of that process yet. So the premise of this is to prevent students from even getting into the MTSS process. Now, we do have a plethora and a pretty robust response side within the MTSS. We have a lot of partnerships with multiple entities that provide those services as well. We have a very robust program with having Narcan in every single school now. We do, and we have trained on that as well. So the cost associated with particular counseling services for the number of students who make it to that level, there are alternative sources out there to support that process. But for the benefit of the majority of the students, the task force felt the approach of prevention and education should be the target.
Okay. I agree that, education and prevention is really critical for those students who aren't actively using at this point. And so you're saying that our district, when we find that a student is found with paraphernalia or substances that would require rehabilitation for them to, I guess, kick that habit, we do, what's the word? We provide them with a service or an agency who can then take on that student with their needs and
Yes.
and the associated costs.
Yeah, so we have partners with COPE, with Intermountain, and and CASAs, right? That basically, should we refer students into the system, their families, they get immediately connected with those specific resources.
Mhm.
It's important to know too that not every student needs counseling, or not every student needs this particular intervention. So we kind of hand that to that particular entity, and they then engage in their own practice at that point. Then for those who have a substance disorder, they have these programs also have a program to get them to come back into school safely.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. And if I can address the same issue, I think that would be the role of the community health worker. So their community health workers, if the patients of our students don't have insurance, navigate them onto Medicaid and their families, navigate them onto private insurance if they qualify on the exchange. They would make the linkage, if a student is using actively, link them to Intermountain and COPE or other services to help them get the substance, recovery services, the counseling service, and other things. And that would be the role of our TUSD community health workers, along with the Pima County community health workers and other folks working in each of our regions to then manage those, who are using actively or do have active mental health crises. And so we're really hitting on two fronts: the RFPs on the prevention side, on all the education prevention, and probably recognition, and then on the community health worker side, on the linkage to services and navigation.
Thank you.
Okay. Board members, any other questions? Real quickly, I just want to make a comment. I agree with my colleague here, Ms. Ekstrom. I see option 2 personally as being the best option. There's more community connection as opposed to something like option 3, which has none, and kind of, I don't think that would not behoove this project in any way. So I can support option 2. Ms. Shaw, I think you had your hand up.
I did. Thank you. Gosh, I don't know if I'm in support of option 2 because, the program manager would only be overseeing 5 community health workers. Although, a coordinator would be helpful, I would rather use that funding to fund another community health worker, because 5 across our district, they're going to have a lot of work. You know what I mean? And so I think better use of the funds would be to add another community health worker. I'm also more interested in funding this as a pilot program, maybe for a year or 2, rather than to approve the full 8 years that we have in front of us, just so we know that, things are going well, and maybe if we need to pivot, we can pivot. And because I'm really concerned that, maybe we're not going to have enough support in identifying those students who greatly need to be intercepted somehow. And so, yeah, I asked Mr. Ross privately if he could talk about maybe the legal aspects, and I know this is controversial. I was just curious of bringing, having an IGA with some sort of entity if we were to bring in drug-sniffing dogs to find substances like fentanyl within our schools so that we can identify those students who are using and selling on our campuses. And so I wonder if he could speak to that.
Thank you, Ms. Schott. Just on a high level, in terms of Fourth Amendment, a school can have drug sniffing dogs sniff lockers, but not individual students unless there's a reasonable suspicion that student has contraband. So that's kind of the high level Fourth Amendment. Parking lot too, so cars and and lockers. In terms of the IGA piece, I'm still working on that. I will say my experience with that is that a law enforcement agency may have to think about whether or not they can not act on an alert from a drug sniffing dog. So that's something that we're still trying to connect with our law enforcement partners to see, what could be done about that, because we want to make sure that the small things stay small, and this is a treatment effort, right? And I'm not sure how law enforcement is going to handle having their dogs alert and not take action on a criminal way. Now, the other option would be to have our own drug sniffing dogs, but I know they're very, very expensive to train and maintain.
Dr. Shaw.
I'd be willing to host.
And I want to just state that I would only be in favor of what I suggested if those students who were found with substances would not get any charges and would instead be diverted into some sort of substance abuse treatment program.
Mr. Romero.
So just kind of mixing up a little bit. So we're putting this on a projected, 8-year plan. And it's brand new. We've never done it before. It's not been done before. It's an experiment. Is there a way we can say, hey, we're going to do this for the first 2 years. We're going to reanalyze, see what's working, what's not working, what we need to change, versus just putting it all, here's the 8 years, this is what's going to be all spent, and we're spending money in areas that didn't work just because we passed it, 8 years ago from after the finishing of the program.
Sure. Very good point. Year one is going to basically be a build out year, right? So policy, procedures, positions, hiring, right? Programming. Once that is in place, part of that particular process needs to include a quality assurance program, right? So part of that process would be to perhaps report back annually, per se, right? What impact are we actually making? And that would be my suggestion to the public, mom and pop taxpayers, so that they know that we're making a difference to that, right? And then that'll hand an opportunity that should we need to adjust, or if we are getting really good outcomes, which we suspect that we probably would, then that opens doors to other things, to like large grants, county funding sources, partnership sources, or we determine that the 5 THWs are so impactful, but they're overworked, right? So now we need 10, right? So maybe we are totally supportive of a step-by-step process with that. But what we're asking of you today is to basically kind of point us with the compass, go that direction, and we'll work those teams out that way for you. But I love the idea of an annual report for how that is moving along with inclusion of challenges and if there's any changes suggested as well.
Yeah, because I see this as kind of an evolving thing, because whatever the drug issues that we're having now, 5 years, 6 years, 8 years from now, are going to be different. And how do we keep on the cutting edge to be able to offer these services to that? So I'm good with these programs, especially, experts going in to give us their expertise and the time and effort and money that would have been done for this one. And I really do appreciate that, because this is not my expertise. But my biggest thing would be with one caveat that we check, somehow put that, we do a annual overview of what the this has been doing, and then let's make changes accordingly. That would just be my personal thing on the board.
Dr. Shaw.
Hey, thank you, President Luna Rose, and I appreciate the conversation tonight and all the different suggestions. And I tend to always think kind of like big picture on the forest and how this is going to impact all 40,000 students. And I can't help but, with my role, the last 7-8 months now, I've been the medical director at the Pima County Jail, including the adult facility and the juvenile facility. And I see day in and day out, how we as a society has failed so many of our individuals and young people in Tucson. A lot of them, are former TUSD students or current TUSD students. And I think about the 17-year-old yesterday who I took off the detox protocols, from the substances he was using. He was recently incarcerated, and just how we continue to fail so many in our society here. And glad that we have this opportunity and to do this. And while this is new to us, this is the first time we're doing this. RFPs will be with organizations like Pima Department of Health and other nonprofit agencies that we currently have relationships with or don't yet. And they've been doing it for a long time, and they are going to bring a lot of the expertise and proven track record of programming that with half of this money being spent on the education and prevention piece. And so I think we'll get a lot of expertise both in the work that's going to be done putting all this together if we approve something tonight, but also from the outside agencies that we'll partner with, for a lot of these programs. So I'll move option 2. That's what I'm hearing from a lot of my colleagues here. I'll move option 2 with the addition of the annual report coming back to the governing board on how this is going year after year so that we can pivot if we need to.
Second.
Okay, so we've got a motion on the floor by Dr. Shaw, seconded by Ms. Ekstrom. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. I just really think we should consider option 1, because if we create an admin position such as the program coordinator, and it's not really needed, it's going to be hard to cut that position. You know what I mean? Like I said, I think that money would go much more further if we were to fund 1.5 more community health workers. 5 community health workers for 40,000 or more students is a lot. And of course, not all of them have substance problems, but for those that do, still 5 is gonna be a lot on their plate.
Dr. Shaw.
I appreciate that. I think one of the roles of the program coordinator would be that flexibility piece. We look at the description here, supports leadership and development of substance program, but also engages the community health workers, supports the role, serves as backup. We talked about, you had mentioned bringing up, making 6 community health workers, but this really gives that flexibility. If we have 1 community health worker per region, but we realize that, one region is really struggling and has, a lot more individuals using substances or needs more support, that's where the program coordinator can really help on some of the backups. I think this is really building in some of that extra support and redundancy into it so that we can really pivot if we need to during the year when one region is struggling more than others.
So is the program coordinator trained just like the community health worker is? The exact same stuff.
Yeah, so the intent is to, this particular person would be able to support all the regions as needed. Now, it's also important to note that the task force spoke highly about the more connectivity to leadership and support for entry level public health officials that they can get, the more they stay in the job and the more engaged they are. Michael has a special knowledge base of that, so I'm going to turn it over to Michael.
Yeah, so I will speak, and then if I miss anything, I'll also invite my colleague Lee, who also works with CHWs at the Pima County Health Department. So let me start by saying my first job at Pima County Health Department was a program coordinator position under a program manager supporting a team of 25 CHWs and public health nurses. And so what I have seen in practice is that, especially with what we're considering here, where the program manager is not inheriting something that they need to continue, but they really have to lift something off the ground. And your team over at Social Emotional Learning and Counseling are going to be supporting that, but this is really going to fall on that program manager. What you don't want to find yourself in is the scenario where your community health workers are doing the on-the-ground work, which also comes with some vicarious trauma, right? Especially in the scenarios like that you've described, where the students of highest need will need that one-on-one support and a trusted adult that they can rely on. Those community health workers need their own trusted adult, right? And so by creating a program coordinator role, you have someone who can both provide administrative support to that program manager who is going to be doing the program planning, the program implementation, but also answering to the board annually to demonstrate program evaluation, but is also going to be that person who can cultivate the team, provide those soft skills to provide space and that one-on-one back and forth about those experience in the field. But you should also account for what happens if you're down 1 or 2 CHWs, right? And you still have 5 districts. A program coordinator is going to provide that fallback. It also, if you're fully staffed, provides you the ability to continue to serve all of the students that you're describing. And how Dr. Goss said, right now we're starting out here. We can continue to find funding sources, and we can, we're taking a community-based approach that's collective with nonprofit agencies, government agencies in your district. And I think we have the potential to grow this to make sure that your students are the most healthy that they can be so that they can achieve academically and beyond their time with your district. Did you want to add anything? Okay.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. One last thing I just want to say before we vote on this, like if there is a student, who is trying to kick some habit and, they want to get out of their situation or their environment, their school, and maybe they would like to switch schools. I don't know if that's a thing that you all will help with the community health workers, but let us know if there's a need for transportation department to help facilitate that.
Okay.
Thank
All
you.
right. Ms. Borboa, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Ms. Ekstrom?
Yes.
Mr. Romero?
Yes.
Dr. Ravi?
Yes.
Ms. Shaw?
Yes.
Ms. Luna Rose?
Yes. Okay. Item passes 5-0. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Great job, everyone.
Yes.
Thank you, everyone on the task force. Yeah.
Okay. Moving on to 7.5, approval of a healthcare task force. And I do believe Dr. Shaw.
Great. Thank you, President Luna Rose. I'm really excited about this proposal tonight if the board approves it. We've talked a lot about our health benefits over the last couple of board meetings and what it means in terms of the increasing costs, how we're kind of stuck right now in our sick care system that really is this, messed up fee-for-service model where doctors and clinics and hospitals get paid for sicker patients and sicker employees in our district, and how there's a lot of different ways that we can provide true health care and preventive care and support services for those with disease and health care needs in a way that looks beyond our sick care system. We've been working behind the scenes, the EBT and staff and others, meeting with different potential partners and others in our community who can potentially help us get out of this model that we have of sick care and into a better healthcare model that will provide better care for our employees and staff and their families, hopefully save costs to our system. But there's always a give and take on these different proposals and different options. There's sacrifices that need to be made to get other different kind of outcomes. And while we can help make decisions, our staff leaders can help make decisions, our EBT can help make decisions, these decisions affect the 6,000-7,000 employees that we have on the ground so enormously. And so when I met with our esteemed colleague, Mr. Brin from the TA board, and our union representatives, figuring out, with all these different changes and how they can affect our employees so significantly, their budget, their finances, their health, and their security, this task force goal is to really first educate themselves on what the healthcare landscape looks like, what is our insurance landscape, what are some of these options out there that the EBT, the staff leaders, and ourselves are looking at, and really help vet those options from that perspective of those who are on the ground affected by these changes and help make those recommendations on are these sacrifices worth the benefits? Are there other things that we can look at? What's going on with the costs? How this is affecting their pocketbooks and their livelihood. And so I'll turn over to Mr. Bryn for some more input on this. So we proposed this task force that will really bring in our leadership team with our frontline staff to really look at these changes and to really help vet these changes and to really bring that input into the process.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. We try to keep it brief. I really support this idea, having looked over this a couple times, met with Dr. Ravi about this. I think it's fundamentally necessary to at least dive in on investigating this, researching it. We already kind of cooked up some ideas for running some TEA town halls for members in person or Zoom to really take a look at these things. I know what struck me, I believe it was a presentation Mr. Fernandez made in terms of where the monies get spent a lot in terms of pharmaceuticals and things like that and towards these specific issues. So it's also looking at how our union can advocate for working conditions that are and supportive working conditions that take away stressors, that work on, working with the health and wellness team from the District 2 in terms of creating those spaces and opportunities to step off of things, step back, catch yourself, work on some trainings and things like that to, we're lowering blood pressure, and other pieces that lead to unhealthy behaviors that build up over a lifetime. They don't translate well to interactions with students and other staff members and things like that as the stress tends to build up. So T is very supportive of taking a look at this, having our voice represented on the task force to take a look at it and work in partnership in moving away from that model that is unaffordable, not healthy, not sustainable, and all those good bits. So looking forward to finding the folks from our union to have representation on the task force and working to collaborate and coming up with a good idea.
I want to add this: the goal of this task force isn't to replace the Employees Benefit Trust, the official board committee, or to replicate their work. The EBT, the Employees Benefits Trust Committee, will still be looking at the finances, doing some of the work behind the scenes, coming up with cost estimates, and really coming up with these proposals. The goal of the Healthcare Task Force is to really give that employee frontline staff input into the proposals coming from the EBT before they come to us on the board to make sure we have buy-in from our staff on any fundamental changes that there might not be changes. We might be stuck with what we have, and that we really unfortunate, but that might be the reality. But if there are some fundamental changes, I think having that frontline input into that before they even come to the board, I think is going to be really important. And so the goal is not to replace or replicate EBT, but to really supplement and really bring that input in from the staff.
Okay. Board members, any questions? I have a question, actually. How many people are you envisioning on the task force?
Business science talks about, a dozen being kind of a max, group to really work well together. So I imagine a dozen. This isn't an official board committee or anything, but this is really the voice of our staff input and process. So we can really, work with our leaders, Mr. Fernandez and our EBT, along with our union leaders to kind of make sure we have the right people as opposed to the right number.
Okay.
And again, I think a lot of the work of the task force, as we're mentioning, isn't going to be just a bunch of people around a room looking at this, but really having those town halls and forums and other things to really build that input over time.
Okay. All right. Mr. Romero.
So is this time frame, you thinking, Dr. Ravi, until, I guess, this following year, or is this going to be kind of a continual?
I would imagine about 2 to 3 year time frame on this. I think if we're going to make some major changes, we have an RFP coming out next year to bid for some proposals, but I would see this more of like a 2 or 3 year time frame to really help vet proposals coming up next year, but also for some really fundamental changes that might come over the couple of years to come.
Okay. Ms. Shaw.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Byrne and Dr. Shaw, for bringing this forward to the board. I think it's a fabulous idea. I hope that some of the members of this task force will consider joining the EBT committee so that they can help steer the conversation. And so I'd like to move the item.
I'll second.
Okay. So item moved by Ms. Shaw, seconded by Ms. Ekstrom, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Right, the ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Byrne. And Dr. Shaw. Okay, so now we are on to 7.6, Tucson Unified School District Alternative Education Advisory Committee Membership Recommendations. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Luna Rose, members of the governing board. The governing board office was, of course, in receipt of 10 interested applicants in joining the governing board's appointed Alternative Education Committee. We provided the governing board with all 10 applicant information materials and resumes for its review, and the governing board is now ready to make its appointments.
Okay. So who we have is Brianna Chilias, Gabriel Garcia, Vanessa Garcia, Lucy Labosha, Melissa Molina Garcia, Betts Putman Hidalgo, Ken Richings, Luke Skiba, Tanya Walker, and Gloria Soto Wilson. And I just want to say that to all the people that applied to this committee, thank you so much. You know, your voices, we want community voice, and we want your voice on any of the committees. So there is room, I do believe, 3 more spots. But before we take the vote, I will turn it over to Ms. Shaw for any comment.
Thank you. So yeah, this is a long time coming. I'm so happy that we are bringing this forward today, and you know, it's really important work because we have a lot of fabulous programs in our district, and they can be improved and tweaked a little bit. And so I'm just really honored that we have some amazing people who signed up. Many of them are already working in some of these programs. You know, Miss Gloria she was at Cole for so long, and now it's Tuba. She has such passion to help students who are in need. Miss Labosha worked in DAPE before it was kind of changed. And so I know she has a lot to say about how we can improve that program. And we have a current DAPE teacher in there too. And so a lot of heavy hitters here. And so I'm just so pleased and looking forward to the work as serving as their board liaison. So I'd like to move the item.
Okay. I will second. Okay. Any other, Mr. Romero?
Do we have an idea timeline when, after approval, there'll be a first meeting for this organization, or this committee, sorry?
Gosh, I'm not sure when our first meeting will take place. I imagine we might have to poll everybody to see what day would be good for everybody, so we can reach quorum.
Okay, looking forward to it.
Dr. Shaw.
Who's the staff lead for this committee?
Dr. Trujillo.
Who's the staff lead for this committee?
All governing board appointed committees go through Yolanda in the governing board office. Then they're assigned one of our staff members to serve as administrative support. So usually it's a senior administrative office assistant or an executive assistant that may do the minutes and make sure that they're published in action. So it's a to be determined at this point.
Okay. All right, so we've got a motion on the floor, moved by Ms. Shaw and seconded by myself. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, the ayes have it. Congratulations, Ms. Shaw, and I hope, please let us know when the first meeting is.
Absolutely, thank you.
Thank you. All right, 7.7, Tucson Unified School District Bond Oversight Committee Membership Recommendations. Dr. Trujillo.
President Luna Rose, board members, like item 7.6, the governing board, of course, was provided application materials for all of the interested applicants for the Bond Oversight Committee. Governing board had an opportunity to have a discussion and has now, of course, settled on a membership decision for appointees. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you, President Luna Rose.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Trujillo. So like our previous committee, this is a committee of 13. So we did have 18 applicants, and we just as a board, discussed who we thought would best fit the committee. So for all of those who did apply, thank you again for wanting to see how we're going to be spending these bond funds, because we have the community entrusted in us with their vote back in November on how we were going to be fiscally responsible with these funds. So I'm actually really looking forward to this committee and what they come up with and their recommendations to the board. So without further ado, the board has recommended Jeffrey Anthony, Katie Arvizu, Don Bell, Sophia Blue, Montserrat Caballero, Luis Gonzalez, Erica Miranda Carter, Red Murrow, Raghu Nandan, Peter Norquist, Tiffany Rogers, Delia Sotelo, and Cindy Coleman. And Ms. Shaw.
Thank you, Madam President. Yeah, this is fabulous. And, unfortunately, we had to cap it at 13. Everybody who applied, we wish we could have included everybody, but we had to, make a decision. And so I know the people who you listed just now will do a great job in representing those who were not selected and representing the community in overseeing the bond funding. And so I'd like to move the item.
Okay.
I'll second.
Okay, moved by Ms. Shaw and seconded by Dr. Shaw. All those in favor say aye. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Romero.
So just real quick, since the first time I'm seeing a committee being formed, Rob Ross, so how does it move forward from there? Does the charter go ahead and get started? Because I know we don't have really something official. How does it look?
So considering there isn't really a charter except for the board's initial formation, what normally happens is the new committee will meet, and the first task, and I recommend it as a really good task to get people kind of organized around themselves, is to create a charter to present to the board, so that they can, okay, how are we going to work together, and what are our deliverables going to be to the board. So my recommendation is, if the board doesn't adopt a charter at the outset, is to have the committee do that themselves. It's a really good exercise to get them working together.
And then after that, then they would come to you for clearing up the legal.
We're always available to help with that, and I hope that they do, both of these committees.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Dr. Shaw.
Thank you, President Luna Rose. I just want to add, we appreciate everyone who applied, and for those who weren't selected tonight, we do have other committees in our district that have openings, like our Budget Advisory Committee and our Audit Committee, that have openings related to the budget and finances of our district. And so that was your interest in joining this committee. Please consider one of the other committees that exist as well, because you can still make an impact and really have a say on budget and finances in our district through the other committees.
Okay. Well, thank you. And you stole my thunder, Dr. Shaw. I was going to recommend for those who did not apply or who were not chosen that we've got other committees that would really love to hear your voice. So please take that into consideration. Okay, we still have a vote. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, new bond committee members.
Yeah.
Looking forward to working with you. Okay, I do believe we might be at the last, almost second last item of the evening. Recommendation of committee member to serve on the Tucson Unified School District Audit Committee. Dr. Trujillo.
Yes, President Luna Rose, members of the governing board, with the, of course, unfortunate passing of longtime audit committee member and chair, Dr. Kelly, we do have a vacancy. The audit committee is recommending for governing board consideration Ariane Etchert to serve as the newest potential member of the audit committee. 18 years of experience as a senior financial auditor with the Arizona Auditor General's Office. Stop right there. That is probably one of the best qualifications in terms of understanding school finance and being able to work on the audit committee. But also highly proficient in governmental accounting standards, graduate of the University of Arizona, Pima County resident, and the recommendation this evening.
Okay, and I will turn it over to Mr. Romero.
So yeah, we had our audit meeting, committee meeting on February 16th, 2024. After reviewing the resume, it was unanimous. The audit committee reviewed the application and approved the recommendation, and they wanted to approve this recommendation to the governing board. Ariane Eckert to serve as committee member on the audit committee for a 4-year term to expire on August 31st, 2029. And as we saw, we had the application attached.
Okay. Board members, any questions? Dr. Shaw.
I'll move the item.
Okay. I will second. All right, so moved by Dr. Shaw, seconded by myself. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you so much. All right, I actually think we may be at our last item. Future meeting dates and agenda items. Dr. Trujillo.
This is one of those instances where the board has back-to-back meetings, so we're back here a week from tonight. A little bit of a respite for the governing board. It's going to be more of a study session on numerous items that we have been back-burnering and wanting to get in front of you with. Some highlights, if you're watching out there in the public, the long-awaited study session on cost projections for potentially adding additional monitors and custodians to schools. We'll present the board with those cost estimates and potential scenarios. We also will have a study session on the district's marketing and recruitment campaign set to kick off this February for the peak of the enrollment season coming at us this spring. So our director for communications will be here. And then also, if you're interested in summer school, we're going to be having our summer school update to the governing board. All the latest information on summer school programming available at all grade levels, as well as calendars, important dates, information for transportation and food service. And then we will be having an open public comment period for the district's desegregation annual report for fiscal year 2023. That was posted in November of 2023, so community members will have an opportunity to offer any commentary on our annual report, which is posted on our desegregation page. If you're interested in commenting, want to give it a read, it is there, available for review. So we'll see everybody next week.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much for sticking with us this evening, and we'll see you next Tuesday. Have a good night.